The story opens in the middle of a debutante ball, already loud, shiny, and full of pressure. A confident noblewoman is giving the usual pep talk to the young ladies, telling them not to be nervous. All they have to do, she says, is take the hand of the partner she prepared for them and walk through the door. Easy, right? Then she flips through her list and calls the first name, May Avril. She's the eldest daughter of Count Avril and our actual main protagonist of this story. The noblewoman tells May to stand in front because she plans to introduce her first, and then immediately acts like May doesn't exist. She skips over her without a pause and moves on to the next girl. Of course, the other noble ladies notice, and so they start whispering. They call May the problem child of the Avril family, the one who couldn't even debut until she was 23. Someone snickers that this ball was supposed to be her younger sister's turn, which must mean May showed up out of jealousy because her sister is famously beautiful. May hears every word. She clenches her teeth and forces herself to breathe. Inside, she's already done with all of them. Seriously, why are they acting like this when they're all stuck in the same situation? In the end, they're no different from her. They're all extras. Yes, extras. Because May Avril isn't a heroine, a villainess, or someone blessed by fate. She's a background character in other people's romance fantasy stories, the kind that never gets chosen, never gets lucky, and never gets a shiny turning point. And she knows this for a reason most people don't. May can see titles floating above people's heads. She's seen them since birth, letters hovering above others like invisible labels. For the longest time, she didn't know what they meant. That changed about a year ago, when her master explained the truth. In this world, everything is decided from the moment you're born. Status, wealth, class, and above all, whether you're a main character or an extra. Because this is a romance fantasy world. That realization completely wrecked May's worldview. She used to believe that if she lived kindly, good things would come back to her. Wrong. Kindness belongs to heroines, like the girl who feeds a beggar and accidentally helps a hidden prince. So what about hard work? Surely that would pay off, right? Nope. May even tried selling flowers on the street, thinking effort might finally matter. But she got crushed by another heroine whose business magically took off because, surprise, she was the protagonist of a story called, In This Life, I'm a First-Generation Chaebol. Opportunity, it turns out, also belongs to the main characters. Which brings us back to the ball. A debutante ball is basically a turf for romance fantasy heroines. No crumbs fall here for someone like May. She wasn't a transmigrated, regressed, or reincarnated character. And yet she came anyway, for a reason. That's when April Avril appears. April is May's younger sister, the second daughter of Count Avril, and she looks every bit like an angel. She rushes over, full of concern, worried about May after all those nasty whispers. But the moment she hugs May, her tone shifts, sharply. She asks why May even bothered coming. A bug like her should know her place instead of embarrassing the family. May plays along, smiling sweetly. She adjusts April's ribbon and casually tells her it's crooked. Then, while fixing it, she whispers back that she came to ruin April's debutante ball. And really, April is the one who doesn't know her place. Because May knows the truth. The April standing in front of her isn't her real sister anymore. She's Seol Eun-chae, a possessor who stole her beloved sister's body. April snaps back in anger, calling May an extra and starting to say more, but they're interrupted. The noblewoman in charge finally calls May's name. May turns, smiles brightly at April, and makes a quiet vow. An extra like her, who supposedly doesn't know her place, is going to take everything from her. And with that, she steps into the party. Now, did things magically improve? Not really. Once the ball is in full swing, May ends up standing off to the side while April becomes the center of attention, surrounded by people. But May isn't panicking. She already planned for this. Her plan B. Right at midnight, the doors swing open. The entire room buzzes as a tall, handsome man walks in. Then, to everyone's shock, he goes straight to May and asks her for a dance. He's Duke Cedric Richelstan, the Duke of the North, and the kind of man who never shows up to balls. People whisper like crazy. Why is he here? And why is he dancing with her? Some scoff that May isn't even pretty or famous. But May just smiles, because her tactic worked perfectly. She doesn't have a heroine's spark that pulls attention naturally. So instead, she borrowed a hero's blazing halo. And now that everyone's eyes are on her, April is definitely not pleased. But beating April's pride was never May's true goal. When May spots a familiar figure nearby, she politely thanks Duke Cedric for the dance. He brushes it off, saying he only came because of his sister's request. May smiles and tells him to pass her thanks to her master. She has something important to take care of. She then scans the room and follows a man heading toward the balcony. From the beginning, the debutante ball was just an excuse. This man was the real reason she came. Two men on the balcony look surprised when May suddenly approaches. As she steps closer, she remembers what her master once told her. In a romance fantasy world built around a heroine, there's only one way to drive out a possessor. And that's exactly why May introduces herself to this man in disguise. Because he is the son of their empire, Emperor Riham Elefton, the tyrant of the El-Rash Empire and the male lead of Seol Yoonche's story. For an extra like May, there's only one way to reclaim her sister. She has to seduce the possessed heroine's male lead. There are usually 3 classic ways to win over a tyrant in a romance fantasy story: regression, reincarnation, and transmigration. The usual cheat codes, but May has none of those. She's just a normal 23-year-old young lady. No second life, no system whispering tips in her ear, and just a pure-blooded extra. So when you're stuck like that, there's only one desperate option left. A secret technique nobody brags about, but everyone in romance fantasy knows. The legendary 3 combo. When May finally looks up and sees the Emperor's face, she does pause for half a second. Yeah, he's handsome. But this is not the time to fall in love. She has priorities. So she steels herself, throws dignity out the window, and commits fully to acting like a complete lunatic. Step 1 of the combo, the kiss. She grabs Riham by the coat and locks lips with him out of nowhere. His eyes twitch instantly. That's not a good sign, but May doesn't stop there. Step 2, the slap. She pulls back and swings for his cheek like she practiced 100 times in front of her mirror. Except this time, she doesn't even finish the motion because the Emperor catches her wrist midair and starts asking what the hell she thinks she's doing. Which leads us to the grand finale and the most unhinged part. May grabs a wine bottle, raises it like she's about to perform a forbidden ritual, and yells something about ashes, blood seals, and him never forgetting her for the rest of his life. All of this is supposedly for first impression purposes. Unfortunately for her, Riham dodges the bottle effortlessly and knocks her out with a clean strike to the back of the head. The next thing May knows, she's on the floor, unconscious, while the Emperor calmly orders his knight to throw her in prison. Later that day, Riham is soaking in his bath, replaying the whole mess in his head. Ladies throwing themselves at him isn't new. Slaps aren't new either. He's dealt with both plenty of times. But the wine bottle? That part was new. That's when his loyal knight, Gale Dacre, walks in to report on the background check Riham requested. Gale freezes mid-step when he notices dead assassins on the floor, and immediately apologizes, saying it was his failure. Riham waves it off. That sort of thing happens more often than people think. What he actually cares about is May Avril. Gale hands over the report, and Riham flips through it. The more he reads, the more suspicious it feels. Her background is too spotless. No hidden connections, no strange history, and not even a tiny red flag. It's almost impressive. Which makes him wonder if she prepared this in advance, or if she really is just an ordinary noble lady who lost her mind for one night. Either way, there's only one way to find out. He decides to question her himself. Meanwhile, May's night has gone completely downhill. She's stuck in a cold prison cell, rats casually treating the place like their personal hangout spot, while she lies there thinking about how unfair romance fantasy logic really is. Other female leads open their eyes in silk beds under fancy ceilings after possessing someone's body. But May opens her eyes to a sword pressed against her neck. Instant bad ending vibes. The Emperor looks down at her with a lazy smirk and says her name like he's already bored. He reminds her that attempting to assassinate the Emperor is a crime, and even trying is enough to get her executed on the spot. May, who is now shaking like a scared puppy caught stealing food, can barely breathe. And the worst part? Yesterday's madness wasn't even her real personality. That whole kiss-slap-bottle routine was something she practiced over and over in front of a mirror. Her actual nature is a total coward. The Emperor tilts his sword slightly, letting the tip brush against her neck, and casually wonders out loud what he should do with someone who acts like an assassin one day and a well-mannered noble lady the next. That tiny movement is enough to send May into full panic mode. He could really kill her. Inside her head, she's already pulling her hair out. Still, she forces herself to move. She tells herself she can do this again. For April. For her one and only younger sister. With trembling hands, May pushes the sword away and blurts out that if he kills her, he'll regret it for the rest of his life. That finally gets his attention. Riham asks, still smiling coldly, what possible basis she has to say something like that. May swallows hard but straightens her back and claims she's a special person. Someone who can give him exactly what he needs most. He allows her to continue, but the warning is clear. If she's spouting nonsense, she dies right there. May gulps, then speaks. Pull out the weeds, sow the seeds. Only a wise woman can unravel the secret of the red stone. Even Gale stiffens in shock. Those words are taken straight from the secret will of the late ruler. In truth, this part is fairly simple. The weeds refer to the corrupt ministers. The seeds represent the loyal subjects. The wise woman is the empress, and the red stone points to the flame knights, the secret knight order that once answered directly to the late Empress Agnes. Put it all together, and the meaning is clear. Only after removing corrupt nobles, gathering loyal allies, and standing beside a proper empress can Riham gain control of the Flame Knights. And for an emperor whose power base has been unstable since his mother's sudden death, that kind of power is priceless. Then May does something even crazier than last night. She stakes her family's future and makes a direct proposal to the Tyrant Emperor. She promises to place the Flame Knights into his hands. In exchange, she asks for just one thing, that he accept her as his fiancée. And yes, the third step of the Romance Fantasy 3 combo was never about knocking out the male lead with a wine bottle. It was always about a fake engagement or fake marriage. Riham stares straight at her and asks if she really thinks she can bargain with him right now. The look alone is enough to make most people crumble, so May rushes to explain before he decides she's crossed the final line. She quickly says he's got it wrong. She's not trying to become his empress. Not at all. All she wants is to be his fiancé for a short time, just borrowing the position, temporarily. Riham scoffs. He points out how small and insignificant her family is, and asks if she really thinks he is desperate enough to cling to the promise of someone like her. May swallows her fear and goes all in. She offers assets, her father's seal, and the land deeds of the Avril family. Then she raises the stakes even higher. If Riham announces their engagement, she promises that within 3 days she'll remove every traitor gnawing at his power base. And if she fails, he can annul the engagement, seize her family's wealth, and if he feels like it, even take her life. She's betting everything she has. All that's left is for Riham to decide. After a moment, the Emperor smiles and says that May Avril is interesting. And just like that, the Empire explodes with rumors. The official announcement goes out that the Emperor is engaged to May Avril, and people lose their minds. No one can believe it. That ugly, ill-tempered noble lady. Some assume there must be a deal behind it. Others complain that if the Emperor was going to marry into the Avril family, he should have chosen the second daughter instead. The angelic one. Meanwhile, May herself is protesting like an angry squirrel. She storms in, demanding to know why Riham announced a marriage without even holding an engagement ceremony. She says this is a breach of contract. Riham calmly reminds her that an engagement ceremony was never part of their deal, which is unfortunately true. Still, May refuses to back down. If not a ceremony, then at least a royal banquet, and it has to happen within 3 days. Riham comments that for someone who was supposed to die a few days ago, she's being surprisingly demanding. May sulks and says holding one banquet isn't even difficult. He replies that he can't organize one just for her, but if she really wants to attend a ball, he can arrange that instead. That instantly cheers her up. His solution is simple. He'll ask his godmother, Marchioness Sarah Selagarden, a powerful figure in high society, and an old friend of his mother. Conveniently, the Marchioness is hosting a masquerade ball that very night. Riham does have one condition, though. He leans in close to say it, which makes May's face heat up. Whatever that condition is, it'll become clear later. When the night of the masquerade arrives, May appears in a light yellow dress, looking stunning, but very nervous. The ballroom is packed, and Riham reminds her of his instructions. She must never reveal her identity, protect her mask at all costs, and if anyone asks who she is, She'll introduce herself as Alicia March, the Marchioness's niece. Then she realizes how difficult this night is going to be. Reham intentionally spread a rumor that his fiancée would be attending the ball. Now everyone is hunting for May Avril, while May herself has to hide who she really is. She laughs awkwardly, not understanding why he'd do that. Reham lightly pats her head and tells her not to overthink it. Just consider it a test. But his mood shifts the moment he spots something off. Then, he says he'll explain later, gently takes her hand, and tells her to go inside first without him. May blushes and asks what about him. Reham instantly switches back to his cold tone, asking why it sounds like he needs her permission. That alone sends May into panic mode. She bolts inside, shouting that she'll see him later. The moment she's gone, Reham and Gale are surrounded by assassins. Turns out several guests came to the party with one goal: killing May Avril. Maybe this is why there was no engagement ceremony after all. Back inside the ballroom, May has just finished chatting with Lady Rosalind. The second the lady turns away, May pulls out a small notebook and starts scribbling notes. It's exhausting work. Everyone is wearing masks, so she has to approach people one by one just to figure out who's who. Then suddenly a hand reaches from behind her. Reham snatches the notebook. May nearly jumps out of her skin as he teasingly asks what she's been writing so seriously. While her heart is still racing, Reham flips through the pages, unimpressed. He calls it useless and says he doesn't get why she's doing all this. But this is exactly her plan. May calmly tells him she's done her part. Now it's his turn. The names written in that notebook are the weeds they talked about earlier. Every noble slowly eating away at the empire from the inside, or the hidden traitors. And this was the real reason why she insisted on coming to the ball. Because earlier that night, May used her unique ability to check the titles floating above each noble lady's head. One by one, she identified everyone connected to villain roles. What Reham's holding now is a complete list of enemies. And May found them all in a single night. As expected of a tyrant emperor, Reham doesn't hesitate for even a second. Every noble whose name appears on May's list is immediately thrown into prison. The problem is, none of them have official charges yet. That doesn't sit well with the Prime Minister at all. He confronts Reham and questions how the Emperor can lock up so many nobles without solid proof. Reham doesn't even blink and says they're all corrupt officials slowly chewing through the empire from the inside, exactly as written in his mother's secret will. The Prime Minister pushes back and asks if Reham is being misled by someone. That's when Reham's tone sharpens. He asks if the Prime Minister is trying to insult his adorable fiancée, the future Empress of the Empire. That shuts the room up for a moment, but the man doesn't stop there. He argues that nearly half of those arrested are meritorious nobles who helped Empress Agnes, Reham's mother, rise to power. He adds that the late Empress would never approve of what's happening now. The Prime Minister turns to leave, but before he can fully walk away, Reham drops one last line. He says he's not so sure whether it's his mother who wouldn't welcome this, or the Prime Minister himself who doesn't welcome Reham's reign. The man leaves without replying, but the tension lingers thick in the room. Left alone, Reham lets out a quiet sigh and opens a drawer. Inside is the seal May handed him before. Just looking at it lifts his mood. While that's happening, May is trapped inside a dream she wishes she could forget. 10 years ago, her mother was murdered by bandits. April, only 8 years old at the time, was the sole witness. The shock was so severe that April lost her ability to speak. That night, during their mother's funeral, May saw her little sister holding back sobs, unable to cry out loud. That was the moment May decided she would protect April no matter what. All she wanted was her sister's happiness. She wanted to hear her laugh again, from the bottom of her heart. Years later, when April finally called May's name again, it should have been a miracle. Instead, that was the day May realized the person in her sister's body was no longer the real April. May jolts awake from the dream, her chest tight. Before she can even calm herself, a maid rushes in and excitedly tells her to hurry. The Emperor has summoned her to the palace. Now she understands why. Outside, countless nobles are gathered, protesting loudly. They demand the release of the imprisoned nobles, insisting they're innocent. Standing there, May finally realizes something she tried to ignore. Using her ability alone isn't enough. Her face pales, and Reham subtly shifts his position to block her view of the angry crowd. May doesn't quite understand the gesture, and for a split second, She even wonders why this feels like something a romance fantasy, or rom-fan, heroine would experience. Since when did things turn this way? Riham admits the situation is bad. The officials May identified are so clean that the more he investigates, the less evidence he finds. Most of them are founding nobles of the empire, powerful people who can't be locked up forever without proper charges. What he needs now is a believable justification. So he asks May how she chose them. Panic hits instantly. How is she supposed to explain her ability? In the end, she dodges the question, mumbling that it's her secret. Even famous restaurants don't share their recipes, she says. Some things stay hidden, even from family. Then she quickly moves away and sits down, reminding him that she gave him a deadline. She asks him to trust her just a little longer. Riham studies her for a moment, then agrees. Waiting a few more days isn't a big deal. Still, he reminds her of what's at stake if she fails. May starts shaking so badly she barely looks like the same person in this scene. Just when the tension settles, the head butler enters with news. Lady Emma of House Lindsay is requesting an audience. Riham raises an eyebrow. Count Lindsay is one of the nobles currently imprisoned. He sarcastically asks since when the Emperor became a stray dog that comes running when called. The butler quickly clarifies, the request isn't for the Emperor. Lady Emma wants to see May. Then the butler repeats Emma's exact words. I want to see the bug in the Romfan world. Now sitting face to face with Emma, May finally understands what that earlier insult meant. When the butler called her a bug of the romance fantasy world, it wasn't just trash talk. That wording gives it away. Emma is a possessor too. Just then, Emma said she came here because April advised her to, which means, once again, the fake sister is pulling strings from behind the curtain. Of course she is. Emma doesn't bother easing into the conversation. She straight up tells May that April said if she came to see her, everything would be solved. Then she adds that May should just step aside already. This isn't a stage where a side character like May gets to interfere. That one hits hard. May keeps smiling on the outside, calm and polite, but inside she's absolutely losing it. Because sure, she might look like a harmless noble lady, but mentally, she's trained for this kind of fight. And now that she's irritated, that switch flips on by itself. So May starts simple. She politely asks the lady's name. Emma answers with a smug little smile. Emma Lindsay, the youngest daughter of Count Lindsay, currently imprisoned without charges because of May's influence. The tone makes it obvious she's used to getting her way. May shuts that down immediately. She says she doesn't want that name. She wants Emma's real name. And then she asks, very calmly, if Emma doesn't even remember it anymore. But Emma stays silent. May doesn't let it go. She asks how long it's been since Emma possessed this body. Long enough to forget who she originally was. That's when Emma finally snaps back, calling May more impudent than expected. She asks if May is acting so bold because she trusts her special ability that much. Then Emma leans in close and whispers her advice. In a world made for protagonists, no matter how much noise an extra like May makes with petty tricks, she'll never win. May doesn't even blink. She points out that if Emma truly believed that, she wouldn't be here right now. And right on cue, the door bursts open. Gale rushes in with the news they've been waiting for. He's found the evidence. May immediately goes through the documents, flipping pages faster and faster. Gale explains that the trial preparations are already underway. The papers detail everything. Spies planted inside the Imperial Palace. Tax embezzlement. Secret ties to assassin guilds. It's all there. The entire mess will be settled within a week. Emma starts sweating. She asks if May really thinks this will change anything. May steps closer, looks her straight in the eye, and promises that it will. She tells her they'll meet again in court. Then she calls her fake Emma. Fast forward to the day of the trial. Count Lindsay is sentenced to death. His first and second sons receive life imprisonment for their involvement. Every member of the Lindsay household is stripped of their titles, and all their assets are confiscated. The fake Emma screams that it's all a conspiracy. That's when May appears behind her, and calmly asks if she still thinks this world revolves around her. From the way she talks, it's obvious she feels no remorse at all. Emma snaps back, calling May a witch. She accuses her of scheming everything, saying this isn't how her story was supposed to go. None of this should have happened, and it's all May's fault. She lunges. Before she can even touch May, Riem is already there. He pulls May into his arms and moves her out of reach without hesitation. Then he turns to Emma on the floor and asks why she tried to attack his fiancée. Emma insists she's innocent. She says her family devoted everything to the Empire. But Riem cuts her off. That's not what he asked. He demands to know why she attacked May, the woman who will become the Empire's empress. Not only did Emma try to hurt May, she also insulted her in front of him, which, in his eyes, is the same as insulting the Emperor himself. That's the end of it. Emma is dragged away, screaming and pleading. But something strange happens. As May watches, the title floating above Emma's head starts to blur. At first, May thinks it's just her eyesight. Maybe the distance. She even rubs one eye to be sure. Then Emma collapses. And in that exact moment, May realizes the truth. The story title above Emma's head is gone. Completely gone. After that, Riem and May end up sitting across from the Prime Minister, and the mood immediately shifts into something heavy and serious. The Prime Minister gets straight to the point. Regarding the 56 high-ranking officials the Emperor ordered to be investigated, he confirms that every single one of them was involved in serious corruption. Executions, asset seizures, title revocations, all of it has already been carried out based on how severe each crime was. He slides the documents forward and tells Riem to review the details at his convenience. Then he moves on to public reaction. According to him, the response depends on social class. The nobles are terrified. The common people are celebrating in the streets. For a moment, Riem and May both light up. That reaction alone feels like proof that everything they did was worth it. But the Prime Minister doesn't let that moment last. He says that's only the situation right now, before the real consequences start showing up. Once the administrative gap hits, things won't be so simple anymore. He starts firing off scenarios one after another. What happens if the central grain belt gets flooded and grain supplies fall short? What if the Western nobles, already proud and restless, decide to rebel? What if pirates on the eastern coast begin kidnapping citizens and holding them hostage? And what if all of that happens at the same time, crashing down like a storm? Then he asks Riem directly if he still thinks the people will stand behind him when that happens. The pressure in the room spikes so fast that May's face starts wobbling again, her own face going blurry from how tense she is. Riem scoffs and says it sounds like the Prime Minister is scolding him for not pretending he never saw the nobles' crimes. The Prime Minister calmly replies that a ruler has to think about even the smallest details while chasing big goals. From his point of view, stripping all those nobles of power without preparing successors was reckless. And Riem, not missing a beat, takes that as proof that the Prime Minister's support base has collapsed and that the man is holding a personal grudge against him. The atmosphere is seconds away from exploding. That's when May steps in. She raises her hand and admits there's something the Prime Minister doesn't know yet. She explains that it was meant to stay a strategic secret, which is why neither she nor Riem shared it earlier. But the truth is, they already have countermeasures in place. All she asks is for time. The Prime Minister presses her, asking how much time and demands a clear deadline. May answers and says she'll deliver results within 1 week, and that after that, it won't be too late for the Prime Minister to judge everything. Later out in the garden, May's legs finally give out. The moment she's alone, she admits it to herself through shaky breaths. She walked straight into the Prime Minister's trap. Her mind spirals as she compares reality to how things should have gone in a romance fantasy. This was supposed to be the part where the male lead leans close to her in a carriage, or catches her by the waist as she falls, or saves her from drowning in some dramatic rescue. Instead, from the first day she met Riem, all she's done is work herself to the bone. No swooning, no heart-racing moments, just paperwork and survival. Still, May forces herself to breathe and pull it together. She tells herself not to get discouraged. If the plan isn't working, then she'll change it. She'll rush through the second mission, and once that's done, she'll go all in on the romance route for the third one. Besides, this mission doesn't sound that hard. At least that's what she believes at the time. She remembers something her master once told her. When looking for capable protagonists, don't overthink it. Just check the keywords in the title. Powerful women are often hidden in the worst places, like how pearls are buried in mud. Among all the flashy labels like capable, arrogant, scheming, and genius, the real jackpot is always the same: a villainess who has regressed. With that in mind, May Avril moves fast and seeks out the undisputed queen of villainesses, Marchioness Olivia Cruz. May starts things off politely, complimenting the tea and saying it has a really lovely aroma. It's the safest opening she can think of. Olivia, however, shuts that down fast. With a calm smile and an icy tone, she says that compared to the tea leaves supplied to the Imperial Palace, this one is barely good enough to keep up appearances. Olivia is smiling. Yes, but it's the kind of smile that keeps people at arm's length. So May decides there's no point dancing around it anymore. She explains why she's really here. May admits that she spent almost her entire life in the Avril territory, and it hasn't been long since she arrived in the capital. High society here is a battlefield, and she knows she can't stand alone. What she needs are people who will firmly stand on her side, and she wants to build that kind of support together with the Jasmine Club. The Jasmine Club is Olivia's tea party circle. Every woman in it shares a similar fate. They're women cast aside by their families, whispered about behind closed doors, and crushed by cruel rumors. After turning back time, Olivia worked tirelessly to gather women who lived through the same kind of darkness she did. What Olivia doesn't know is that half of the Jasmine Club members are just like her in another way too. Women who, like her, had returned and played villainous roles in their own stories. That's exactly why May is here. She needs to bring these villainesses together and support them. But to do that, she has to win over Olivia first. Olivia listens quietly, then says she'll give her answer, but only after asking May something first. She starts listing names. Lady Maria, one of their key members, was taken by the city guard half a year ago for attempting to kill her younger sister. Lady Dorothy committed arson on her family estate and was kicked out of her house. Their spiritual anchor, Countess Beauvalet, is endlessly followed by rumors that she bathes in the blood of young maids to preserve her beauty. Then Olivia turns the spotlight on herself. She says she was born while severing her mother's lifeline. She grew up watching her half-sisters drop dead one by one. After marriage, she lost her husband as well. Because of that, people openly call her the tragic Marchioness, or the Witch of Death, not even behind her back, right to her face. Olivia calmly points out that many members of the Jasmine Club carry reputations like these. Not exactly the type of people one would expect the Emperor's fiancé to associate with. So she asks the real question. What is May's true reason for wanting to join them? At this point, May looks like a helpless puppy, trapped and outmatched. And honestly, she expected this. Olivia is known as one of the sharpest minds in the rom fan world, and that's exactly what makes her so hard to deal with. But it's fine. May remembers her master's lessons. She was taught never to face villainesses head-on. Their schemes will always fly way beyond her expectations. Instead, she has to take a gentler route, target their weak spots. She has to become their spring. So May starts acting. She says their reputations don't trouble her at all. She says she can see it clearly. The gentle hearts beneath all that cruelty and rumor. Sparkles appear, and tears well up. This is the moment she decides to unleash lines so sweet they should make Olivia cringe. She praises Olivia and her friends, saying that inside them rests a heart more tender and lovely than anyone else's, and that no amount of envy or slander from foolish, greedy people could ever shake their resolve. May is fully committed to the performance. Unfortunately, it backfires. Olivia's expression only grows more grim. Without raising her voice, she smoothly excuses herself, saying she has something urgent to attend to. And just like that, she leaves, abandoning May in the room. May is left stunned. She can't understand why her master's tried and tested cringe persuasion didn't work this time. In the end, all she can do is stand there, on the verge of tears, like a puppy left out in the rain, completely rejected. Back at the Imperial Palace, May can only let out a long sigh. This is the first time her master's strategy has completely failed, and to make things worse, she can't even ask for help right now. Still, she forces herself to look on the bright side. There are 6 full days left. It's not over yet. That's when she spots April talking to another lady in the palace halls late at night. Why is April here? May walks over and asks what brought her to the Imperial Palace. But instead of answering properly, April tells her to relax her face and greet her beloved sister with a smile. May grabs April by the shoulder and coldly says thanks for the early advice, but that's something the real April can handle just fine. And once her real sister comes back, this fake standing in front of her won't need to worry about anything anymore. April just smiles. Then she casually slaps May's hand away and says she thought maybe May would feel guilty about something by now. She goes on to say she finally understands why May insisted they debut together back then. It wasn't to sabotage her debut, something April didn't realize at the time. It was because May was aiming for the first meeting with the Tyrant, an event that was originally meant for April. Fake April calls May greedy for wanting her man, and says that's what makes May a truly wicked older sister. May tells her to stop playing word games. She says she's never hidden her real goal. All she wants is to drive the possessor's soul out of her sister's body. But that only makes the fake April laugh. She comments on how touching their sisterly bond is, then drops another insult. After all of May's struggles, everything has gone right back to where it belongs. The reason she's at the palace tonight is simple. She's now the Emperor's dance practice partner, meaning they'll be seeing each other a lot more from now on. Then she says it in a calm, chilling tone. It's as if the world itself is whispering to her, telling Seol Eunchai to reclaim the male lead who was taken from her. He was hers from the beginning, and the world agrees. And the worst part is, May feels it too. She feels lost. Her master is unreachable, the villainess is still out of reach, and now her fake sister has decided to plant herself right in the middle of everything. One problem after another, all lining up neatly to ruin her plan. Seol Eunchai keeps going. She tells May not to feel too discouraged, because this is just how things work in romance fantasy. That world always revolves around the protagonist. Extras like May don't get love, don't get hope, and don't even get to hold on to something as insignificant as her sister's body. That's when May completely loses it. Hearing her sister's body called insignificant is the final straw. May raises her hand, ready to slap her, but the fake April catches her wrist. With a smirk, she says she'll kindly educate May since she seems unfamiliar with current trends. These days, romance fantasy heroines are strong. And she's not done acting yet. She notices someone familiar behind them. So when May finally breaks free, Seol Eunchai grabs her hand again and uses it to slap her own cheek. Anyone watching would think May just struck her sister. Just then, Riem steps in from behind, his voice sharp as he demands to know what's going on. What a perfect timing. Looking back, May stutters as she tries to explain herself to Riem. The words barely make it out before fake April suddenly raises her voice and cries that everything is just a misunderstanding. With perfectly timed tears, she says May was only trying to guide her and help her walk the right path. Riem shuts that down fast. He says April has a habit of speaking in ways that blur her real intentions, and reminds her that he only asked for an explanation, nothing more. April then claims that she and May simply had a small conflict. When Riem asks if she's saying May raised her hand over a sisterly argument, May steps forward herself. Her hands are shaking as she reaches for Riem's arm, trying to explain. But Riem pauses and looks at her closely. He comments that May doesn't look well today, and gently suggests she go inside first. She tries to protest, but her trembling hands betray her. In the end, Riem tells Gale to escort her back to her room, adding that he wants her to think about how worried he is for her, his beloved fiancée. From May's point of view, though, Riem looks like someone who has already decided not to hear her out. Walking beside Gale, her thoughts spiral. She understands his position. She really does. Anything she says right now would sound like an excuse. In a situation like this, of course he'd trust her sister more than her. So why does it feel like she's about to cry? Back where Riem stands, he casually points out that April's cheek is badly swollen. If May had been wearing a ring, he says, it would have left a serious mark. April keeps up her innocent act, saying this kind of thing isn't new between her and her sister. She even tells Riem to hurry after May, adding that May is sensitive but not a bad person. Riem scoffs. Then he looks straight at April and tells her she must take him for a fool. He says the only younger sister of his fiancée is greedy, vile, and stupid. As a trained swordsman, he explains, he knows how to read people's movements, and the reason he sent May away wasn't because he believed April's lies. It was to stop May from being forced to defend April in front of him. April's eyes dart around the place. This isn't how it was supposed to go. The Prime Minister, who witnessed everything, quietly avoids her gaze. Riem then asks her again why she used May's hand to slap her own cheek. Why would she try to disgrace the only sister she has? Whatever answer or punishment comes next isn't shown. Instead, the scene cuts to May the next day. She's buried under her blanket, crying like the world just ended. Between sobs, she wonders if it's really that hard for Riem to take her side just once. She's supposed to be his fiancée, yet the title feels like nothing more than words he says when it's convenient. Angry and hurt, May starts wondering if male leads in romance fantasy worlds are legally required to only listen to female leads. She even asks the universe why she had to be an extra. At this point, she'd rather be the villainess. She checks all the boxes anyway. Favoritism in the family, torment from a sibling, persecution by the world, and a sharp brain. She's got the full package. Then she looks in the mirror and realizes the real issue. Her face. That thought alone feels like a complete defeat. She throws a few punches into the air like she's practicing martial arts and curses to the rom fan world. If she were a regressed villainess, she'd have already dealt with fake April using her fists. That's when it hits her. Now she understands why Olivia rejected her offer before. With that realization, May straightens up and leaves her room. She finally knows how to bring Olivia and the Jasmine Club to her side. At the door, she calls for her maid and tells Daisy to rush to the kitchen. She wants cakes and refreshments for 20 people ready within 2 hours because she's inviting the ladies of the Jasmine Club to the palace. Then she turns to another servant, Philip, and tells him it's his job to make sure every single lady from that club attends. Philip nearly collapses on the spot, saying he can't handle something so important. May just smiles and tells him not to worry. All he has to do is say one magic phrase. She leans in close to Daisy and Philip and whispers what they should say if the ladies hesitate. The exact words remain a mystery, but the servants' pale expressions show they're crazy enough to cause panic. Just like May predicted, every single Jasmine Club member showed up to her tea party. She greets them all with a polite smile, the kind that looks calm but is working overtime. Once everyone settles, May wastes no time and explains why she invited them. The Empire just went through a massive purge. Corrupt nobles were wiped out, but the seats they once occupied are still empty. And May's plan is simple. She wants those positions filled by the most capable people in the Empire, which, conveniently, are sitting right in front of her. Olivia doesn't even sugarcoat her response. She says the Jasmine Club has no intention of boarding the same ship as May. Not now, not ever. May, however, doesn't look bothered. She says they'll all agree in the end, because she plans to make the deepest wish of every woman in this room come true. Besides, pretending not to know why they came would be pointless. They all heard the magic words earlier. And yes, that's when the truth comes out. The message May whispered to Philip and Daisy was simple and terrifying. There's a small gift for those who attend the tea party. If you accept the invitation, the person you fear the most will be killed for you. Olivia smirks and calls May's imagination impressive. She reminds her that everyone here is a noblewoman. Olivia herself is the eldest daughter of the Bauer family, a house older than the Empire. Her late husband was a marquis of equal standing. Countess Beauvalet owns mines producing magic stones worth more than diamonds. Lady Belle's father controls the Arbon Merchant Guild. These aren't women some random thug would dare touch. So Olivia asks the obvious question. Who would even dare threaten the Jasmine Club? That's when May calmly starts listing examples. Parents who abuse their own children. Younger sisters plotting to kill their older sisters. Husbands with dangerous jealousy issues. Older brothers draining their younger sisters' fortunes to pay off gambling debts. May smiles and says it's just basic etiquette for a cultured lady to investigate these things. Still, Olivia and the others aren't fully convinced. They start to rise, ready to leave, when May speaks again. She says she doesn't understand why they insist on taking the longest and most painful road when a safer one is right in front of them. Olivia replies coldly that it's because there's no trust between the Jasmine Club and May. They have no proven achievements, their reputations are already stained, and they don't understand why May is so obsessed with recruiting them. May answers calmly. She says she knows many accomplishments credited to others were actually meant to belong to these women. She knows how their families treated them, and judging by their reactions, she's right. In other words, her assumption is correct. Villainesses don't move for praise or sweet words. What they really want is protection. So May makes it clear this was never about reputation. What matters to her is a person's true nature. She reminds Olivia that she said it before. She can see the warmth in their hearts. And right now, she's the only one who openly believes in them. That lands harder than any flattery ever could. The tea party ends with May smiling like everything went perfectly. The moment it's over, though, her energy drops to zero. She collapses onto a nearby couch, completely drained. That's when Riem suddenly arrives. May jolts upright in shock, but as she tries to stand and walk toward him, the room spins. Her legs give out, and she slumps to the floor. Confused, she looks up and notices the maid beside her smiling far too calmly. That's when it clicks. She was poisoned. The maid pretends to help her up, but leans close and whispers that April sent a message. May shouldn't steal another person's male lead like that. So yes, in the end, it really was her fake sister behind it all. May doesn't even get the chance to curse her out, because her vision fades, and she passes out right there. After some time, the doctor finishes examining May and gives his conclusion. She was exposed to a small amount of poison, not enough to kill her, thankfully. As long as she takes the medicine he prescribed, she'll be fine. And right on cue, May opens her eyes. At first, everything feels hazy. She tries to figure out where she is and who's nearby, but her vision is still blurry. Two figures are talking at her side. She squints, focuses. One of them is Riem. That's when an idea pops into her head. This is it. The classic poison incident event. In stories like this, the heroine gets poisoned and hovers near death, and the male lead realizes his feelings in dramatic silence. It's basically romance law. And May, being May, decides there's no way she's letting this opportunity slip by. So she keeps her eyes shut and pretends to still be unconscious. When the Emperor steps closer, May is internally panicking. He isn't saying anything. He's just staring at her so intensely it feels like he could burn a hole through her face. For a second, she wonders if she's already been exposed. But no, he didn't catch her acting. Instead, Riem gently places a hand on her forehead to check her temperature. He seems relieved when he notices her fever has gone down. Unfortunately for May, the closer his face gets, the faster her heart starts racing, and her face starts heating up right along with it. Thankfully, he pulls back before she fully combusts and calls out to Gale. Riem asks for an update on the missing maid who was assisting May earlier. Gale reports that they've searched everywhere, but there's still no trace of her. Not a single clue. That's when Riem's expression darkens. The cleanup was too perfect, almost like the poisoning was planned from the start. He starts thinking about the unknown enemy who's been sending assassins after him ever since his coronation. And then a worse thought hits him. Did they add May to the list now? If so, then she's caught in all of this because of him. Riem immediately gives Gale authority to form an investigation team and use any means necessary to track down the missing maid. And that's when alarm bells start blaring in May's head. Because if the truth comes out and the fake April is exposed as the culprit, then her sister's body will be the one paying the price. There's no time to pretend anymore. May suddenly reaches out and grabs Riem's arm, stopping him. Riem immediately turns back, firing off questions about how she's feeling and whether she's in pain. But May insists she's fine. That's not why she stopped him. What she really wants is for him to cancel the order to pursue the missing maid. Riem asks why. Shaking slightly, May says that everything happened according to her own plan. She explains that she needed to stage a poisoning scene to persuade the villainesses. She admits she misjudged the timing, but insists it wasn't the maid's fault. So when Riem asks if she's saying this was all an act, May apologizes for worrying him and takes full responsibility. That's when Riem's tone drops. Cold and sharp, he asks who gave her permission to risk her life. He doesn't remember ever telling her to do something that reckless. He demands to know why she would treat her own life like it's worth nothing. Is it really that cheap? Cheap enough to gamble it over something so trivial? The room goes silent. Then, after that sudden burst of anger, Riem lets out a long sigh and sits back down. And that's when May realizes it. He's not furious, but scared. May smiles softly and thanks him for worrying about her. But she tells him it wasn't a trivial matter. Then she casually drops another observation, saying that in that short moment, she finally understood what Riem wanted from the Prime Minister all along. He wanted his acknowledgement. And as if summoned by the mention, the Prime Minister himself appears at the perfect, or worst, timing, stepping in with grim news. A new problem has just surfaced. Soon after, Riham sits at his desk, flipping through a thick stack of reports while the Prime Minister stands across from him and explains everything in detail. The first report dates back a month ago. A strange epidemic broke out in the Ratana estate, located in the central southern region of the empire. At first, it was contained there, but now it has already spread to nearby estates. Dean Chad Demish from El Rash Academy, a well-known pathology expert, was urgently dispatched and identified bedbugs as the source of the disease. He tried to set countermeasures in place. But before he could finish his work, Riham revoked his title and imprisoned him. As a result, there is still no proper solution to the epidemic. And that's not even the worst part. The next page reports that pirates have begun looting the Mastan coast, causing serious damage. That coast used to be untouchable under Admiral Karl's control. Pirates wouldn't even look in that direction. But the Emperor personally sent Admiral Karl to the gallows, and the sea immediately turned lawless. Then comes the capital. Crime rates have skyrocketed. Violent crime, which was only 8% half a year ago, has now more than doubled. Riham doesn't wait for the explanation. He says it himself. That happened because he exiled Police Commissioner Ferdy. He asks the Prime Minister if he truly believes Ferdy should have stayed in power after it was exposed that he abused his position and trampled on powerless women. The Prime Minister calmly replies that, as he said before, he has no objection to punishing corrupt nobles. The issue is that purging them all at once was an administrative mistake. The air tightens fast. Before the argument turns into a full-blown war, May steps in and tells both of them to stop. She says the problems the Prime Minister listed can be solved quickly if he just gives her a little time. She already has talented people ready to fill those empty positions. The Prime Minister looks unconvinced. He asks if 20 people can really handle problems of this scale. What does she plan to do with so few? Riham's calm cracks instantly as he snaps at the Prime Minister, but the man doesn't back down. He admits May has a sharp eye for talent. He even says her idea of employing capable daughters from noble families reminds him of the late Empress. However, the real issue remains the same: the numbers. 20 is simply not enough to manage this many crises at once, and he bluntly calls May irresponsible. That's when Riham calls him out by name, Marquise Graham, warning him to stop insulting his fiancée. He's about to go further when May speaks again. She says if the problem is manpower, then there's nothing to worry about. Her master will handle that part. Right on cue, the doors open. A small group walks in, led by someone with adorable chubby cheeks and short legs. One of them cheerfully calls out to May, announcing that she's finally here. Everyone freezes when May cheerfully calls the newcomer her master. That master turns out to be Lady Elise Richelston, Duke Cedric's only sister. A late-born child the Duke treasures more than his own life. Physically, Elise looks about 7 years old. Mentally, she's 27. On top of that, she's possessed romance fantasy characters twice before. In one of her past lives, she was even rejected by Riham and eventually returned to Earth. No one in the room knows how to react. May is standing there hyping up her master, who looks like a child straight out of a picture book, complete with dramatic sparkles for emphasis. The adults around them just stare, openly questioning reality. May, however, doesn't waver. They can doubt all they want. Soon enough, they'll see how magnificent her master truly is. And not just her, but everyone she brought along. Because in romance fantasy worlds, the smartest ones are always the villainess, and the genius baby ladies. The Prime Minister takes a moment to recover from the shock, then clears his throat and politely asks Elise how old she is. Elise, without missing a beat, says it's rude to ask a lady her age. Still, she adds that if her age makes him doubtful, he's welcome to test her any time. One of the girls jumps in too, the one with the pink hair, saying they don't need special treatment. Just give them a little time, and they'll show what they can do. Graham listens, nodding slowly, then says, "Testing can wait. Time will expose real ability anyway, so there's no rush there. What actually worries him is public reaction. How exactly are people supposed to take an official who isn't even 10 yet?" He paints the picture out loud. Tiny kids with chubby cheeks sitting at desks next to grown adults in the imperial offices, and even he sounds unsure how to process that image. That's when May calmly says there's no need to worry, because these kids won't be acting as officials at all. She admits she already set things up with Riam's approval. Turns out, she founded something called the Imperial Kindergarten. Yes, a real one. In short, all these baby ladies will enroll there instead. It's a special school for noble children between 6 and 10, and it only accepts geniuses. Riam adds to that by announcing they'll publicly say the ladies of the Jasmine Club are responsible for education at the Imperial Kindergarten. That part is mostly for show. Behind the scenes, the baby ladies and the villainesses will work together and taking on key national matters. Meanwhile, the regular officials won't even realize who's actually shaping the policies. The plan lands surprisingly well. After thinking it through, Graham admits it's solid. To everyone's relief, he approves it. May is so happy she literally jumps and rushes toward Riam, clearly about to hug him. He dodges at the last second. She freezes, panics, and immediately apologizes, explaining she was just overwhelmed with joy and didn't mean anything improper. Instead of getting upset, Riam gently pats her head, praising her for doing well. That one move completely breaks her. May turns red like a tomato, wondering if she's even allowed to think of that as romantic. Whether it is or isn't doesn't matter right now. She's just relieved everything worked out. At this point, there's only one problem left: getting that powder. A few days later, the Prime Minister goes through the newest reports and can't hide his amazement. He keeps flipping pages, impressed despite himself. The plague's spread was stopped using a bedbug repellent developed by Countess Beauvalet. A cure is already in progress, led by Lady Arya Berberin from the Imperial Kindergarten. Over at the Mastina coast, the pirates completely fell apart after Lady Belle baited them into fighting each other. As for the capital, violent crime has dropped sharply, thanks to a magic anklet invented by Lady Elise herself. Even Graham has to admit it. May is delivering results everywhere. Compared to this, her predecessor's achievements barely stand out anymore. And most importantly, the Empire's finances are finally stable, stronger than they've been in years. Still, Graham can't fully wrap his head around May. She showed up out of nowhere like a comet, and now she's reshaping the entire empire. He opens a drawer and looks at the red pouch inside, murmuring to himself that he'll find his answer eventually. All he has to do is keep watching her, and see whether she's truly worthy of becoming the next empress. The scene shifts to pure chaos. 3 of the other baby ladies are loudly protesting, demanding the compensation they were promised: proper food, clothing, and guaranteed shelter. Elise snaps back at them, telling them to wait a little longer, and insisting they weren't lying. She reminds them that she's working herself to the bone too, trying to fix everything as fast as possible. May steps in to explain that there are still procedures to follow before that powder can be officially imported. Just as she finishes, Philip rushes in with bad news. The ladies of the Jasmine Club are collapsing from exhaustion. Without help from the baby ladies, they can't keep up with the workload anymore. May panics and leans toward Elise to whisper, asking what they should do now. The villainesses are at their limit, and there's no time left to stall. Elise looks serious and declares that it can't be helped anymore. They'll have to use the last resort. Across from Lorraine Street, where luxurious mansions line the road like they're showing off, there's a small bar that looks completely out of place. It's the kind of spot butlers from nearby estates quietly slip into after work. The outside is shabby, and the food, honestly, you'd question your life choices just looking at it. But none of that matters. People come here for one reason only. This bar is the secret shop of a legendary smuggler, someone who can get you anything as long as you have the money. And that's exactly why Elise and May are here today. They need a very specific product, and it has to be obtained quietly. Unfortunately, things go downhill fast. After their dramatic entrance, they don't even get a chance to explain properly. The bar owner straight up tosses them out like pests. Elise is completely stunned, standing there like she just got kicked out of her own house. Meanwhile, May is already tearing up, panicking that if this keeps up, their contract with the baby ladies is going to fall apart. Elise quickly pulls herself together and reassures May. She says those people will regret it soon enough for turning away major players in the smuggling world. She's extremely confident, proudly adding that she already has a whole list of trusted dealers in that area. May cheers her on from the side, fully believing in her. So off they go, trying one option after another. Except, every single one of them rejects them. By the end of it, Even Elise didn't expect things to go this badly. She slumps down on the floor in defeat. May, trying to stay hopeful, suggests that maybe they could renegotiate the contract instead. Elise shuts that idea down immediately. Shaking her head, she says, May doesn't understand how obsessed the baby ladies are with that powder. Just imagine angry toddlers charging like starving zombies, except there are a lot of them, and they're furious. Still, they're not completely out of options. There's one last person they can turn to, Duke Cedric. After listening to their explanation, Cedric sums it up neatly. Basically, they need to smuggle something, and Elise wants him to do it. She even says it proudly, with a big grin on her face. Cedric doesn't respond to her right away. Instead, he looks straight at May. May avoids his gaze instantly. To be fair, this was never her plan. With a sigh, Cedric says he'll agree, but there's a condition. Elise immediately throws a tantrum like a child who just got told no. Cedric doesn't budge. He says the job is too dangerous, so he and May will handle it together, while Elise stays quietly in her room. Then, Elise whispers to May, asking if she's really okay doing this alone with her brother. May answers without words, crossing her fingers hard and signaling absolutely not. Seeing that doesn't help Elise at all. She switches tactics and calls Cedric Big Brother, even adding a wink for extra effect. Unfortunately for her, it does nothing this time. Cedric's decision stands. In the end, only May and Cedric head off for the smuggling mission. Back at the palace, Riem is going through a stack of reports, and he's visibly impressed. These are reports about the officials May personally recruited, and the results speak for themselves. Reading them, he can't help but smile as he remembers how confidently May asked the Prime Minister for 1 week back then. Now it makes sense why she spoke with such certainty. But then another memory cuts in. The quiet moment when it was just the two of them talking alone, after May regained her consciousness. Riem suddenly clutches his chest, confused. Ever since that day, his heart has been acting strange. Sometimes it tightens for no clear reason. No matter what he's doing, it just hits him out of nowhere. And the most troubling part? It almost feels like he's getting used to it, like he's slowly getting addicted. On the flip side, May is now sitting inside a carriage with Cedric, and the silence between them is doing most of the talking. People say the Northern Duke hates women and has the personality of a frozen wall. So naturally, May assumes that if she opens her mouth, she might accidentally trigger her own execution. In the end, she decides silence is safer, and just sits there, stiff as a board. Then Cedric suddenly speaks, completely out of nowhere. He tells her that if she wants him to obtain that powder for her, as promised to his sister Elise, he wants one thing in return. He asks that during the entire process, there be no unnecessary social interaction between them. In short, he wants peace and quiet while he works. Before May can even process that, Cedric opens the carriage door and tells her to stay hidden inside until everything is settled. He makes it very clear. She's not to move, not to draw attention, and definitely not to cause trouble that could mess things up from the start. Then, without another word, he steps out and swings his sword straight at 2 assassins waiting nearby. From his point of view, their eyes are locked on the carriage, not on him, which means May is the target. More assassins rush in, and Cedric meets them head-on, while May watches from inside. As this unfolds, May can't help but remember what Elise once told her about what it means to be a Northern Duke. According to her very enthusiastic master, a Northern Duke is someone with the strongest swordsmanship alive, and an equally tragic level of loneliness because he has too much to protect. He sees most women as background decorations, but his woman is the one exception. Elise had gone on and on about it so dramatically that May almost lost her hearing, insisting that as long as May stayed beside Cedric, no assassin or random thug could ever touch her. All May had to do was stand there gracefully and watch the bloody mess get cleaned up. Now that it's actually happening in front of her, May realizes Elise wasn't exaggerating. Cedric is wiping out trained assassins on his own like it's routine work. But suddenly, a sneaky assassin attacks from behind and smashes the carriage window. Before May can react, the man swings his sword toward her seat. She tries to move, but he grabs her hand, making her scream Cedric's name. The assassin grabs her by the neck and starts choking her, and for a split second, everything feels like it's about to end right there. Then Cedric appears and cuts the man down instantly. May is shaken but unharmed. Unfortunately, another attacker rushes in, forcing Cedric back outside to finish his cleaning job. Left alone again, May realizes she can't just sit there anymore. What if another assassin sneaks in? She decides she needs to defend herself too. Spotting a sword stuck in the carriage, she grabs it and pulls with all her strength. It doesn't budge at first. When it finally does, she loses her balance and crashes hard onto the floor. The loud noise immediately alerts Cedric, who rushes back, fully prepared to kill yet another assassin. Instead, he finds May upside down, clutching a sword, looking more confused than threatening. He tries not to react, but when he notices the bruises on her neck and arm, he silently concludes that she is, without question, a very high-maintenance lady. May awkwardly scrambles up and apologizes for making him worry over nothing. To her surprise, Cedric kneels down in front of her, hands her shoe, and calmly tells her to be careful because the floor is covered in broken glass. Just as May reaches out to take the shoe and is about to apologize again, Cedric suddenly collapses forward and lands right on her lap. After getting him to take some medicine, May hesitantly asks if it's true, that he's so afraid of women that even being touched makes it hard for him to breathe. Cedric nods. To May, this actually makes sense. After all, in romance fantasy logic, being the Northern Duke is practically a full-time job, and considering how many heroines must have targeted him since childhood, developing a fear of women seems perfectly reasonable. She then remembers their dance at the debutante ball and asks how he managed back then. Cedric admits he drank 5 bottles of tranquilizers just to get through it. He adds that to everyone else, he must have looked ridiculous. His entire life he was taught to live rationally, make logical choices, and believe that emotions only get in the way. That was the only right way to live, but whenever it comes to Elise, all of that logic falls apart. Just hearing her laugh makes everything else feel pointless. For her sake alone, Cedric feels like he could do anything. May smiles softly and says she understands. She has someone like that too, someone precious enough that she'd risk everything just to get them back. Meanwhile, Riam is in the middle of a medical checkup, sitting across from his most trusted doctor. He complains about his heart pounding too fast, his chest feeling tight, his body running hot, and his sleep being a complete mess. Basically, his body feels like it's rebelling for no clear reason. The problem is, the doctor can't find anything wrong. No matter how many times he checks, everything looks normal. Riham is just about to insist on another round of tests when Gale suddenly barges in with an urgent report. The moment he says that May was attacked by assassins, Riham shoots up from his seat like he forgot gravity exists. He wants to know if May is hurt. Gale quickly explains that May escaped without serious injuries thanks to Duke Cedric, who volunteered to act as her escort. That one name instantly ruins Riam's mood. His expression darkens as he demands to know why that man was anywhere near his fiancée in the first place. Gale reports what intel he has gathered so far. Apparently, May and Cedric were working together to obtain some kind of powder. The exact details are unclear, but one thing is certain. It's made from the fruit of a plant that doesn't exist anywhere on the continent. That sets off alarms in Riam's head. His mind immediately jumps to poison. He recalls an incident from years ago where a baron's mistress tried to buy a powder that drove people insane so she could steal the baron's fortune. Combined with his current chest pain and strange symptoms, the timing feels a little too perfect. So, he orders Gale to secretly assign a knight to escort May at all times, and at the same time, have someone follow Duke Cedric closely and report every single move back to him. A few days later, the long-awaited day finally arrives for May. After all the stress and waiting, it's finally time to get that powder. As she checks the goods, she's relieved to see that everything went exactly as planned. For once, things are actually going right. Then Cedric senses someone nearby and admits that this part is his mistake. He realizes too late that they're surrounded. May panics, but even then, she refuses to leave without taking at least one sack. Unfortunately, the moment they step outside, they're met with a wall of elite knights. Gale is there, and so is Riham. When May innocently asks how they ended up there, Riham cuts her off sharply and says he should be the one asking questions. Specifically, why his fiancée is standing in the middle of what looks like an illegal smuggling operation. May immediately says it's all a misunderstanding. Yes, it looks suspicious, but it's not what they think. Riham isn't convinced. He calmly states that they'll figure out exactly what it is after investigating it themselves, and orders his men to confiscate all the powder, ignoring May's protests. She desperately asks if they can at least leave her one bag. Just one. She really needs it. Gale apologizes, but his answer doesn't change. Everything is taken. Inside, May is spiraling. If this gets delayed any longer, the baby ladies might really turn their backs on them. Everything she worked for could fall apart right here. Then it happens. One knight loses his grip on a sack and it goes flying straight toward May. Cedric reacts instantly, slashing it cleanly in half midair. The sack bursts open, and dark red powder scatters into the air. And that's when chaos erupts. Everyone starts sneezing uncontrollably. Eyes water. Noses burn. The air turns violently spicy in a way no one there has ever experienced before. Gale shouts for everyone to cover their noses, warning that it could be poison. That's when May yells out, completely panicked and offended at the same time, saying that's the one she worked so hard to get. Her chili powder. After returning, Riham immediately starts firing questions at May, one after another. So, to win over the baby ladies, May promised them a very specific kind of food they had been craving. To make that happen, she needed chili powder, the kind that doesn't exist anywhere on this continent. May explains that they managed to find substitutes for everything else, but chili powder has no replacement. So yes, they smuggled it in. Not because they wanted trouble, but because there was literally no other way. When Riham asks why she worked with Cedric of all people, May reminds him that Cedric is her master Elise's older brother. Riham goes quiet for a long moment, then coughs lightly and admits that it's a reasonable explanation. That said, he still isn't fully convinced. He tells her he'll hold his judgment until he sees the results for himself. May just smiles and says that he'll come to trust her eventually, and she's proven right almost immediately. Soon, dishes are placed in front of the baby ladies. Korean food, fully loaded with chili powder. Every single one of them starts eating like they've been starving for years. They talk over one another, arguing about which dish is the best, stuffing their cheeks without a hint of shame. The pink-haired girl even starts crying when she sees kimchi, clutching it like a long-lost treasure. No one holds back. Plates are cleared quickly and smiles are everywhere. It's obvious this worked. May turns to Riham with a proud smile and casually asks if he still doubts her now. Riham exhales, admits that he misjudged her, and says that this time he really was barking up the wrong tree. Then he goes quiet again, studying her instead. After a moment, he asks something unexpected. He says she's the most brilliant person he's ever met. Someone who understands the difference between what he needs and what he wants, yet still manages to give him both. That's exactly why he doesn't understand her. With her ability, she could easily claim the Empress's throne, maybe even take half the empire if she wanted. So why does someone like her settle for being his fake fiancé? What does May Avril actually want? May immediately remembers Elise's warning. Riham is observant, suspicious, and one day he would start questioning her very existence. Elise told her to be ready when that moment came. So May leans closer and admits that he's right. She does have another motive. Then she lowers her voice and whispers it directly into his ear. She tells him it's because she likes him. And just to make sure it doesn't sound dangerous, she adds that she means it as one of his subjects, someone who believes in him and follows his path. Riham lowers his head slightly and comments that May really has a talent for being vague. Then he turns and walks away, leaving May standing there, completely confused about what just happened. What she doesn't see is that as he leaves, Riham's ears are burning bright red. One day, Riham finally decides he can't keep all of this to himself anymore and goes to consult his godmother, Marchioness Sarah, about one very specific problem in his life. That problem, of course, is his adorable fiancé. The moment he finishes explaining everything, Sarah bursts out laughing, and the reason is simple. Riham sounds suspicious of May because she feels too perfect for him. Riham, slightly offended, reminds her that she's the one who taught him that lesson in the first place. When he was young, she warned him that if someone ever appeared who perfectly filled the empty spaces in his life, he should be careful. According to her, things like that were more likely a trap than something genuine. Sarah doesn't deny saying it, but she also can't deny how ridiculous Riham looks right now. She tells him straight up that he looks incredibly cute when he's in love, which does absolutely nothing to help his mood. Still, even Sarah admits something about May feels off. May appeared out of nowhere, caught the Emperor's attention with that bold wine-swinging stunt, and somehow knew things only the late Empress's closest people should have known. On top of that, she solves problems in ways that feel strange, unexpected, and somehow always effective. Even Sarah finds herself wondering why a woman this capable would want nothing more than the title of fake fiancé. So Sarah lays out two possibilities. Either May is trying to win Rihem's heart to reach a different goal, or she genuinely lost her heart to him. She asks Rihem which one he thinks it is. Rihem can't answer. Seeing that, Sarah gives him a plan. She tells him to give May one of the late Empress's jewels, something his mother truly cherished. But he has to make one thing clear. This is not just any gift. It's his mother's. And by doing this, Rihem would be the one opening his heart first. According to Sarah, that's the easiest way to see what someone really feels. Not long after, May is sitting with wide eyes and shaking hands, staring at a stunning necklace adorned in priceless jewels. Just like Sarah suggested, Rihem tells her that it belonged to his late mother, who wore it often, even back when she was still a princess. May thanks him, but she also looks confused. When she asks why he's suddenly giving her something so precious, Rihem explains that he wants to apologize. He tells her that if there's anything else she wants, she only needs to say it, and he'll grant it if he can. May is genuinely grateful. That much is obvious. But then she gently refuses the necklace. And that's when Rihem panics. For a brief moment, he wonders if she doesn't like the design, and even offers to call in a jeweler to change it. But May quickly shakes her head and tells him that's not the reason. She says there's just something else she wants instead. Then she looks around at the garden, comments on how nice the weather is that day, and casually suggests that they go on a spring outing together. Just like that, the necklace test completely goes off script. After a while, the two of them end up alone on a small boat drifting across the lake. The water is calm, the breeze is gentle, and May is having the time of her life, leaning over the edge and splashing the water with her fingers. Rihem watches her quietly. He still doesn't understand why May chose this kind of date, but his godmother's words start looping in his head again. Either May has some hidden goal, or she actually likes him. The thought alone is enough to make his ears heat up. Trying to sound casual, he asks if this is really what she wanted, and whether she's satisfied with something so simple. May just smiles and says it's not just this, adding that a calm day spent with him feels more valuable than any treasure. She says it so confidently that Rihem almost forgets how to breathe for a second. What he doesn't know is that May absolutely does have a plan. Several, actually. Today is dedicated to using every classic romance cliché she can remember. And she already decided the first one. Event 1. The male lead rescues the female lead after she falls into the water. Without hesitation, May dramatically swings her hand, lets her ring slip into the lake, and loudly pretends it was an accident. She leans over to retrieve it herself, and right on cue, falls straight into the water. In her head, this is where Rihem dives in, holds her close, and the mood skyrockets. But instead of Rihem, Gale dives in first. Seconds later, he is already in the lake, swimming at full speed toward her, while shouting for her to stay still. May, meanwhile, is silently screaming inside. To think that even a loyal knight can ruin everything with excessive competence. In the end, the rescue happens successfully, just not the way May imagined. Now they're sitting by a fireplace wrapped in blankets, freshly changed and drying off. May stares into the fire, mentally scolding herself for believing her grand plan would work so easily. Still, she's not done. One failed cliché is not the end. Which brings them to Event 2, watching festival fireworks at the legendary Secret Spot, where romance is basically guaranteed. The idea sounds perfect, right up until they arrive and find the place packed. Couples everywhere, laughing, leaning on each other, clearly here for the same reason. It turns out the spot is only secret if you're a romance fantasy heroine. For everyone else, it's apparently a very popular destination. May clenches her fists in quiet frustration, wondering who started spreading lies about this place. Then someone bumps into her, and before she can react, Rihem pulls her closer, telling her to be careful. For a brief moment, May thinks that maybe, just maybe, this date still has potential. That hope lasts about 3 seconds. Gale, ever diligent, steps in again, even pushing a stranger aside so he can enter the scene. He points out that the area is too crowded to guard His Majesty properly and suggests returning to the carriage for safety. Riham agrees, because of course what else can he do? When he looks back at May, she's sulking so hard she looks like a starving puppy who just dropped its snack. Inside her head, she's questioning what she ever did to Gale to deserve this level of sabotage. What she doesn't realize is that Riham feels oddly relieved. Spending the day watching her try, fail, pout, and bounce back has told him more than any test ever could. Now he finally starts to understand which side her feelings are really on. May is still emotionally wrecked from her completely disastrous romance plans with the Emperor and is now complaining to her master. She says that, as if the universe wanted to rub salt into the wound, another assassin showed up during the return trip, officially turning that day into a full combo of failed romance and bad luck. Meanwhile, Elise listens while shoving desserts into her mouth. May vents that extras like her are just not built for happy endings. No matter how hard she tries, she's not a heroine, so the romance route keeps rejecting her. Elise immediately shuts that down and tells her the problem isn't her status, it's her impatience. She tells May to slow down because a good chance will come eventually. Then Elise casually glances outside and freezes. Right there are Riham in his disguise and fake April, walking together. May sees it too, and instantly stands up, her brain spiraling at record speed. This is that infamous romance cliché where the main leads secretly meet in a crowded dessert shop. And if May feels crushed, fake April is clearly having the time of her life. The next day, May sits across from Riham during tea time, but her mind keeps replaying what she saw. She knows those romance events between him and April are bound to happen, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. She tries to keep it together, but her mood is visibly off. Riham notices right away and asks if she's all right. Like always, May brushes it off and says she's just tired. What she really wants to ask is why he went to that dessert shop, what he talked about with that fake, and why it bothers her this much. But they're not close enough for her to ask that outright. Riham studies her quietly. Even if she says she's fine, she looks drained, slouched, and low energy. He starts wondering if this is because their last outing didn't go well. Trying to lift her mood, he places his gift on the table. May recognizes it instantly. It's candy from the same dessert shop she saw him at yesterday. Riham admits that their last date bothered him too, so he bought it for her. When May asks if he chose it himself, he replies that no one in their right mind would let someone else pick a gift for the person they care about. He explains that he ran into April by accident and asked her about May's taste, but she couldn't answer and just suggested several flavors. May awkwardly says that she and her younger sister aren't very close. But inside, something clicks. Yesterday wasn't fake April's win after all. Riham had gone there thinking about her. That realization alone makes her feel lighter. Then Riham drops another comment, saying it's too early for her to be happy because the gift was actually a bribe. Before I can even process that, the scene shifts again. Now the two of them are riding horses together. Riham mentions that, as Gale probably told her, there's a hunting competition next month, and he refuses to be mocked for poor hunting skills. That's why they're heading into the forest for some light practice. May snaps out of her thoughts when Riham calls her name. He teasingly tells her that he asked her to come, but didn't want to pressure her. If hunting is uncomfortable, she doesn't have to do it. Uncomfortable? Not even close. Inside, May is losing her mind in the best way possible. This is it. Her long-awaited romance chance is finally here. She starts thinking that maybe the world has accepted her as a heroine after all. Her face heats up as she imagines more future romance events with Riham. Just then, the Emperor says they should talk about the two of them, and her heart practically starts doing flips. She braces herself when he says he's been thinking about it for a while now. Her cheeks turn redder by the second, fully expecting a turning point. Then, he calmly asks when it would be a good time to call off their engagement. Not even remotely what she was expecting. In her panic and total confusion, May blurts out what he even means by that. She reminds him that they haven't finished the third part of their contract yet, so calling things off now makes absolutely no sense. Riham, meanwhile, just smiles like he knows exactly what he's doing. Then, without any warning, he casually cuts her off and says he was only joking. A joke. Sure, that smile says otherwise, but May doesn't have time to investigate his intentions any further. Because once again, the universe decides she's getting way too comfortable. Another assassin appears. An arrow shoots straight toward them and lands hard on the ground near their horses, making Gale immediately react. Riham quickly tells his knight that he's fine, but instead orders him to protect May first. Priorities are priorities, even in chaos. Things get worse when another arrow strikes May's horse in the back. The horse cries out in pain and bolts forward without warning. May barely manages to cling to its neck as it runs wildly through the forest. No matter how hard she tries, she knows this is not a situation she can fix on her own. The worst part is that every second puts more distance between her and Riham. Just when things are about to go completely out of control, the Emperor catches up. He shouts for May to reach out her hand so he can pull her over to his horse. After several tense moments of struggling, their hands finally connect. Relief washes over her for exactly 1 second, because that's when her horse suddenly stops at the edge of a slope and rears up. May feels herself lift into the air before gravity takes over, and in that moment, she genuinely wonders if this is how her story ends. But Riham doesn't hesitate. He jumps off his horse and wraps his arms around her mid-fall, shielding her as they hit the ground together. They land hard, still holding on to each other. May instantly panics when she realizes he's beneath her and scrambles to check if he's okay. Riham sits up calmly and tells her he appreciates the concern, but gently reminds her to lower her voice since the assassins could still be nearby. When May whispers back, asking if he's hurt anywhere, he simply ruffles her hair. He admits the impact startled him a bit, but aside from that, he's fine. Then, smiling like this is all very normal, the Emperor asks his fiancée for a favor. By now, Gale is probably leading the knights to search the area, but the forest is huge, and the number of people is limited. Instead of staying in one place, Riham suggests that it would be better if they split up and call for help separately. May immediately feels uneasy about this plan, but she still follows his instructions. Even as she moves away, she can't stop wondering if it's really okay to leave him alone. Then again, maybe romance fantasy male leads are just built differently. Maybe they come with built-in survival perks that extras like her simply don't have. Or maybe this is another classic romance setup waiting to happen, where danger somehow turns into closeness and shared horses. She barely gets a moment to breathe before reality slaps her again. Because right in front of her appears a massive spider, proudly showing off its round body like it owns the place. May screams on instinct, then immediately ducks down and clamps a hand over her mouth. Unfortunately, the damage is already done. Someone has spotted her. Before anything can be revealed on May's side, the scene shifts back to Riham. He is still sitting beneath the tree, barely moving as the sky slowly darkens and the sun sinks lower. Even now, he isn't thinking about his own condition. His mind stays fixed on one thing only: whether May managed to get away safely. Despite the pain creeping through his body and the exhaustion weighing him down, that single thought is enough to keep him holding on. Eventually, his eyes close, not from peace, but from sheer fatigue. Meanwhile, May finally realizes that the person who spotted her isn't an assassin at all. A young lady steps closer, laughing awkwardly as she explains she thought May was a bandit at first. She casually mentions that the area has been dangerous for years because of those people roaming around the forest. May lets out a tired sigh, barely reacting to the explanation. What truly freezes her isn't the warning about danger. It's the title floating above the young woman's head. I picked a tyrant in the forest. By tyrant means, that title can only point to Riham. The stranger cheerfully invites May to stay at her home if she has nowhere to go, and even adds that the forest may look peaceful, but it's home to wolves and bears as well. May nods along, but she isn't really listening anymore. Her thoughts are racing too fast. Suddenly, everything clicks. Her outing with Riham wasn't meant to be a romantic moment for her at all, or for their bonding. It was a setup, a prerequisite, a trigger meant for another heroine to appear and pick the male lead in the forest. And for that event to happen, the condition is simple and terrifying. The male lead must be injured and unconscious. That's when May realizes the truth. Riham lied earlier to calm her down. He sent her away to protect her. And now he's in danger. Without another second of hesitation, May turns around and runs back toward the place where she last saw him, her chest tight with fear. Back at the tree, Riham slowly wakes up when something warm lands on his face. A tear. May's shaking voice calls his name over and over, begging him to wake up. The moment his eyes fully open, she throws her arms around him, holding him so tightly that he freezes in surprise. He tries to ask how she came back, but she cuts him off. Her voice trembles as she admits she truly thought he was gone. She's upset and scared. So she scolds him for hiding his injury, saying that even if their relationship is just a contract, she is still his fiancée. That finally gets to him. Riham sighs in defeat and gently pats her head, letting her cry it out until her breathing slowly steadies. A little later, May manages to start a small fire to keep them warm. That's when Riham speaks again, calmly but firmly, saying the fire needs to be put out. If it stays lit, it could lead unwanted people straight to them. But she immediately refuses. There is no way she's letting him rest without warmth, especially now that she knows he's injured. She argues that they don't even know how his body will react if the temperature drops any further. Riham suggests that it would be better for one person to not survive than for both of them to be in danger. That suggestion completely sets her off. She snaps back that if that's the case, then they should face danger together. She refuses to let him deal with this alone. The words come out raw and emotional, and Riham clearly wasn't expecting them. She admits she's worried sick about him and blames herself for everything that happened. If she hadn't dragged him into this situation, he wouldn't be hurt right now. To stop her from crying further, Riham gently changes the subject and offers to tell her a story. He begins with a tale about a princess who wanted to become the ruler of her empire. She openly spoke of her ambition, but the emperor and empress dismissed it as a joke. After all, she had 5 brothers, all backed by strong supporters. Her brothers disliked her words and eventually married her off to a nobody, sending her far away from the palace. Then, years later, strange things started happening. Members of the royal family began disappearing one by one. First the princess's husband, then the 5th prince. Slowly, the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd followed. In the end, even the last remaining prince was gone. Only the princess remained. And just like that, she took the throne. May recognizes the story immediately. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a retelling of how the late Empress Agnes rose to power. Riham then asks her if she noticed something important. That the one responsible for removing the husband and all 5 heirs was the princess herself. He explains that everyone already knew that the princess killed them all. Even her parents feared her after that. Yet despite the distrust, she still became the ruler. Why? Because his mother had a special ability. She could look at people and see something others couldn't. She observed quietly, read what lay beneath the surface, and used that insight to secure her position. Then Riham looks directly at May and asks if that ability reminds her of someone. May stiffens and tries to play it off, pretending she doesn't understand what he means. Her reaction, however, only confirms his thoughts. Riham admits he doesn't know exactly what May can see or how it appears to her, but he is certain she can see things others cannot. He has been watching her carefully for a long time now, just like he once watched his mother. As a child, Riham was always curious. He wanted to know what his mother truly saw with her eyes. The story then slips into a heavy flashback. Empress Agnes is seen running down the palace corridor, her steps frantic and unsteady, until her legs finally give out and she collapses on the floor. Servants rush toward her, surrounding her in panic as they try to calm her down. Whispers spread quickly, because this wasn't the first time. It had happened again and again that year. Every time the Empress laid eyes on the crown prince, she would break down. Everyone knew how painful it must have been for young Riham as well. The child couldn't even leave his room anymore, afraid of triggering another episode just by being seen. In a way, he was exiled within his own palace. Because of that, he barely received a proper education and grew up isolated from the world. Riham remembers it all too well. His mother's eyes, filled with fear every time she looked at him, burned into his memory. Back in the present, Riham finally admits the truth to May. He didn't agree to the fake engagement just to secure the support of the Flame Knights. That was only part of it. The real reason is that May is the only person who might be able to answer the question that has haunted him for years. Still, May refuses to admit anything. She insists it's all just a misunderstanding. Riham doesn't press further. He lets it go easily. After all, if May truly had such an ability, Being careless with her words would have ended her life long ago. That thought alone makes May's fears spike. In her mind, she's already one wrong sentence away from being cut into two. Noticing her tension, Riham simply smiles and suggests they end the conversation for the night. He jokes that he doesn't want his squirrel-like fiancée running off in fear. A little later, May lies down on the ground, wrapped in Riham's coat. She pretends to be asleep, hoping that will stop any more unsettling questions. Meanwhile, Riham quietly approaches her and sweetly calls her name. He reassures her that he never meant to dig into her secrets to use or harm her. He only wants help understanding something he never could on his own. As his hand brushes through her hair, he softly says that someday, when May truly trusts him, she can tell him what the late Empress saw whenever she looked at him with those strange eyes. Another memory surfaces in Riham's mind. He remembers his mother visiting him when he was young, looking at him closely and whispering that he no longer needed to be afraid. She promised that she would make sure no one could ever harm him. Not now, not in the future, not even after she was gone. Back in the present, May slowly opens her eyes. She assumes Riham must have fallen asleep by now, but something feels off. There's an unfamiliar sound nearby. As she looks around, her heart drops. Riham has collapsed, his breathing shallow, his body burning with fever. There's no way she can leave him like this. She quickly decides to fetch water from nearby, but before she can move, multiple footsteps echo through the forest. A rough voice speaks up, saying he knew he heard a woman's voice around here earlier. Another man laughs and praises their youngest member for finally being useful, adding that they'll be eating well tomorrow. May instantly remembers the warning she received from the stranger earlier about bandits. Forcing herself to stay calm, May steels her nerves. Not for herself, but for Riham. She grabs a burning piece of wood from the fire and swings it in front of her, warning them not to come any closer, or she'll burn them. It's brave, but reality is cruel. One bandit easily knocks the burning wood from her hand, mocking her grip and showing how it's really done before swinging at her. Against even one man, May doesn't stand a chance. But then in a sudden blur of movement, Riham steps in. Despite his condition, he swings his sword and sends the bandit flying backward. Breathing heavily, barely standing, he still places himself firmly in front of May. With a strained but steady voice, he remarks that maybe he doesn't look like much, but he's still capable of protecting the person he loves. Eventually, the fight turns into pure chaos. Riham manages to take down several bandits, but 4 of them are still standing. Under normal circumstances, that wouldn't even be a problem for him. But right now, things are very different. He is injured, exhausted, and still forcing himself to stand between May and the attackers. Even Riham admits to himself that this time, victory is far from guaranteed. Behind him, May suddenly screams when she notices the blood running down his side. Riham tells her he is fine, although deep down he knows the situation is getting worse by the second. But instead of slowing down, he attacks faster, trying to end the fight quickly. Dragging this battle out would only make things harder for him. And there is one thing he refuses to do: leave May behind. Just as he prepares to strike again, something unexpected catches his attention. When he turns around, he sees one of the bandits grabbing May from behind and covering her mouth with his hand. She struggles desperately, trying to warn him. Then, in a moment of pure determination, she bites down hard on the man's hand. The moment she's free, May shouts a warning to Riham. Unfortunately, that brief distraction is all it takes. Riham fails to dodge the attack coming from behind him. The blow lands hard. He tries to stay on his feet, forcing his eyes to remain open because the only thought in his mind is that May will be in danger if he collapses. But even his stubborn determination has limits. In the end, his body finally gives out and he falls to the ground. Thankfully, help arrives just in time. Gale rushes into the scene with the Imperial Guards, and the bandits are quickly surrounded and captured. What could have ended very badly is stopped at the last moment. Soon after, outside the Emperor's chamber, May paces back and forth anxiously, while the doctors and servants work inside. When Gale finally steps out of the room, she rushes toward him without hesitation, and asks about Riham's condition. Gale reassures her that the treatment went well. Then he tells her she can go inside and see the Emperor. Inside the room, Riham lies on the bed, pale and unconscious. Seeing him like that makes May's chest tighten. If he hadn't protected her earlier, she knows she would not have survived that encounter. The memory of the fight flashes through her mind. How he stood in front of her despite not being in his best condition, insisting he could still protect the person he loved. Even in that dangerous moment, he had still tried to comfort her. Leaning closer, May softly thanks him for everything he has done for her, for caring about her, as if their engagement were real. Then she gently places a small kiss on the tip of his nose and whispers an apology. She asks him to forgive her for dragging him into a situation he never needed to face. May stays beside him for so long that she eventually falls asleep without even realizing it. The next morning, Gale enters the room to check on the Emperor and deliver an urgent report. But the moment he steps inside, he freezes mid-sentence. The reason is simple. May is still asleep beside the bed, and Riham is already awake, quietly patting her head. Riham softly gestures for silence, signaling to Gale that the report can wait. At that moment, waking the sleeping May seems like a far greater crime than delaying imperial business. A few days later, the atmosphere completely changes as the annual hunting competition arrives. One of the highlights of the event is a special tradition. The knight who wins the competition places a flower crown on the woman he loves. It is a public way of honoring the person who holds his heart. As May watches the scene unfold, she admires the tradition and comments on how beautiful everything looks. Riham notices her reaction and casually asks if she wants a flower crown too. Then he tells her that if she waits just 1 year, the next crown could easily end up on her head. May immediately looks a little awkward and explains that she was not watching with that kind of meaning. In her opinion, something like that should only be done for someone Riham truly likes, not for a fake fiancé like her. That is when Riham suddenly leans closer and lightly taps her nose. He says that is exactly why he should give the crown to her, the person he likes the most. For a moment, May completely freezes. Her face turns bright red as her brain tries to process what he just said. Then she quickly snaps back to reality and blurts out that he should not tease her like that in public. Not long after that little exchange, the two of them end up walking through the garden together. It should have been a peaceful stroll, yet here they are, clearly awkward. May casually comments that the weather has been wonderful lately. Riham agrees. It isn't too hot, not too cold, and thankfully not humid either. In short, it's the kind of weather people usually enjoy without complaining. Unfortunately for May, the weather isn't the problem. The real problem is the man walking beside her. Ever since that day, being around His Majesty has felt strangely difficult. He suddenly feels unfamiliar, and every little moment turns awkward. If their hands brush by accident, May jumps like she just touched a live wire. If their eyes meet, her face turns red instantly. At this point, May is starting to question everything. She was supposed to be the one seducing Riham. That was the whole plan. Yet somehow the situation flipped upside down, and now she is the one getting flustered every 5 seconds. Maybe it all started during that bandit incident. Or perhaps it began in the forest, in that quiet moment they shared. Or maybe it was when he hugged her, just before they fell. Her thoughts kept running in circles, until Riham's voice suddenly pulled her back. May snaps out of her thoughts and, of course, blushes again. At this point, she begins to suspect the real problem might simply be that His Majesty is way too handsome for his own good. Trying to recover, she quickly decides she needs to start a conversation before the silence gets even more awkward. Turning to him, she says there's something she has been curious about for a while. She asks about the bandits who attacked them before and what Riham plans to do with them. He explains that his original plan was simple. Since they were connected to the assassins who shot arrows during the hunting event, he intended to deal with them all together. But the situation turned strange during the interrogation. Every single bandit told the exact same story. 5 days before the incident, a mysterious woman approached them with a very specific offer. Surprise, May asks what kind of offer he means. Riham explains that the woman told them the exact day someone would enter the forest. According to her, a noble lady with brown hair, green eyes, and a rather plain appearance would get lost there. Their job was to capture that lady and hand her over. That plain noble lady is obviously May. While explaining this, Riham casually picks up a strand of May's hair and twirls it between his fingers. He remarks that the whole situation is incredibly strange. After all, the trip to the forest and the decision to bring May along for hunting practice had both been made on the spot. So how could that mysterious woman know about it ahead of time? It almost sounds like she had seen the future. May laughs lightly and pretends she has absolutely no idea how something like that could happen. Inside her head, however, a certain very persistent fake sister quickly comes to mind. Still, May reminds herself not to jump to conclusions. Her master had always taught her to move carefully, even when things seem obvious. With that in mind, she asks Riem if she can review the interrogation reports. Later on, May studies the list of people connected to the bandits. The group is surprisingly random. There are 4 former knights, 2 servants, 5 maids, and even a baker. It's an odd mix of people who have nothing in common. They come from different places, their ages are all different, and their previous jobs have no connection to one another. At first glance, they look like a group that should have never crossed paths. But after looking closer, May notices one thing they all share. Every single one of them had lost their livelihood after getting into trouble with young ladies. After that, they wandered aimlessly until they eventually gathered in that remote forest. The moment she realizes this, a thought suddenly sparks in May's mind. She quickly turns, ready to ask Riem something important, but in her rush, she loses her balance. Thankfully, Riem reacts instantly and catches her before she can fall. May softly thanks him as she looks up. His arm is still wrapped around her waist, holding her steady. For a moment, neither of them moves. May has absolutely no idea what to do next. She simply stares at him while her face turns red again. Then a thought pops into her head. Should she close her eyes now? Because from where she's standing, the situation really looks like the kind of moment that leads to a kiss. Riem slowly leans closer, and May prepares herself, bracing for what she thinks is about to happen. But instead of kissing her, Riem calmly reaches up and removes something from her face. He explains that he was only taking off an eyelash that had gotten stuck there. Then he casually adds that his fiancée can be a little careless sometimes. And just like that, the romantic moment May imagined disappears into thin air. Embarrassed beyond belief, she quickly turns her face, realizing that to Riem, the whole thing was completely normal, while she had been over there, spinning wild assumptions. Well, there was at least one positive outcome from all of this. May receives permission to personally meet the captured bandits. Maybe Riem agreed so quickly because he had already finished teasing her for the day. Or maybe, when it comes to May, he simply finds it impossible to say no. The scene then shifts to the prison, where the captured bandits are being held. This time, May is the one who will question them. As soon as the interrogation begins, the men start talking, insisting that they were trapped in this situation just as much as anyone else. According to them, they were never real bandits to begin with. They were simply people who had ended up in similar unfortunate circumstances and had been hiding together in that remote forest. They explained that their clothing, and even the threatening way they spoke that day, had all been requested by that mysterious woman. In other words, someone had basically hired them to play the role of villains. One of the men suddenly bursts into tears and begs May to spare their lives. He insists that they truly knew nothing and only followed the instructions they were given. Another quickly joins in, apologizing repeatedly. He claims they never imagined May was someone so important, and says that if they had known, they would never have dared to touch her. At that point, Riem lets out a dry scoff from the side. With heavy sarcasm, he points out that according to their logic, everything would have been perfectly acceptable if May had not been an important person. The room instantly grows tense. Before things can escalate, May quickly calms him down. It's obvious the Emperor is starting to get irritated, and right now that's the last thing these already terrified prisoners need. Once the atmosphere settles a little, May explains the real reason for the meeting. She admits that she personally requested to see them because she has several questions. However, before she begins, she warns them that their answers could affect the outcome of their upcoming trial. So if they value their lives, they need to answer very honestly. With that, May starts reviewing the details she already knows from the investigation reports. She begins with one man whose wife used to work as a maid. According to the report, the maid had gotten into a conflict with the young noble lady she served. Another man had been fired from his job at a bakery after a newly hired girl caused trouble. A third man had a daughter studying at the academy who ended up clashing with a recently enrolled young lady and was eventually expelled. All of them had somehow gotten tangled up with young ladies. One by one, May asks for the full story behind each of these young ladies. After a long round of questioning, May finally steps away, pressing her hand against her temple. Her head is pounding from the overload of information. Still, what she heard is far stranger than she expected. Several of the bandits described the same kind of odd behavior from the young ladies who ruined their lives. They said those women used strange expressions like original male leads, looks obsessed, and even something they called a death ending. To anyone living in that world, those phrases would sound completely bizarre, but not to May. One of the young ladies reportedly collapsed one day and woke up acting like a completely different person, as if someone else had taken over her body. Another openly described herself as an author who knew what would happen in the future, or perhaps as a reader who had already seen the story unfold before. The more May listens, the more the pieces start to fall into place. Her head might be spinning, but at least the information wasn't useless. She now understands that the young ladies who destroyed these men's lives were the same type of people as her fake sister, possessors who suddenly appeared inside the Romfan world. This only confirms May's suspicion that it was her fake sister who contacted the bandits. But one problem still remained. There was no direct connection between them. That leads her to another possibility. Maybe there was another heroine acting as the middleman between the bandits and Seol Yun-chai. As she reviews the stories again, May realizes something even more troubling. Every one of these bandits had once been caught in what romance fantasy readers like to call a refreshing scene. The word itself originally describes a crisp, fizzy drink that feels cool and satisfying. But in romance fantasy stories, the meaning is completely different. It refers to those dramatic moments when the heroine faces injustice, power abuse, humiliation, unfair treatment, and then suddenly turns the entire situation around in one spectacular move. Readers love those scenes because everything gets resolved in a satisfying way. It feels refreshing. But that feeling only exists for the readers watching the story unfold. For the people actually living inside that world, things look very different. Because for every dramatic, refreshing moment, there are always victims left behind. And some of those victims suffer far more than anyone realizes. One man's story hits particularly hard. His wife used to be the head maid of House Doria. She was known for being strict and not particularly warm, but she was always fair. She treated everyone the same way, including Lady Isabella, the Count's illegitimate daughter. Unfortunately, Lady Isabella saw that fairness as disrespect. Unable to tolerate the young lady's constant harassment, the maid eventually made a desperate decision and tried to end her own life. Thankfully, she was discovered in time and survived, but the aftermath was devastating. Her mind regressed, leaving her with the awareness of a small child. The man eventually fled the Count's household with his wife. But even after leaving, the situation never improved. His wife, now with the mind of a child, keeps asking to go back to the place she once worked, like someone longing for home. He refuses every time. But recently her health has started to decline. As May listens to the story, anger slowly rises inside her. In her mind, one thought repeats over and over. The possessor heroines who casually turn people's lives upside down in the name of dramatic story moments. She cannot forgive them at all. And what makes it even worse is the role of her fake sister. Instead of helping the victims left behind by those refreshing scenes, she only tried to use them for her own plans. The next morning, the scene shifts to a place that looks far less intimidating than an imperial strategy room. At the front of the room stands May, holding a stick, and behind him is a board now covered in very creative doodles. Yes, apparently this is how top-secret strategy meetings are conducted today. Using her drawings, May begins explaining everything she learned from the interrogation. She reports that the possessor heroines have been creating countless victims through their so-called refreshing scenes. That group of victims later became the fake bandits. Then May explains the next piece of the puzzle. Her fake sister, Seol Yun-chai, approached that group and convinced them to participate in the kidnapping plan. In exchange, she promised that she would help them return safely to their hometowns afterward. Of course, the big question is why fake April would go through such a complicated method instead of something simpler. After thinking it through, May presents her conclusion. It likely has something to do with information about the future that Seo Eun-chae knows. If the original novel her fake sister read included events involving hired professional assassins, then it's possible that using those kinds of criminals would have been exposed very quickly. Using desperate victims disguised as bandits, however, was far more convenient. If the plan had succeeded, the so-called bandits could simply return to their hometowns afterward. Once they scattered again, it would have been almost impossible to trace the crime back to anyone. In other words, it would have been the perfect crime. With all the information gathered so far, their goal becomes clear. They can use this incident to expose fake April and the other possessed heroines who have been causing harm. Ideally, they plan to remove all of them from the board in one decisive move. Fortunately, they have already secured multiple testimonies confirming that fake April delivered handwritten letters between several possessor heroines. That evidence could become a key piece in proving the connections between them. Just as May prepares to suggest their next step, Elise suddenly raises a hand. Her question hits the room like a small bomb. She points out that once it is revealed that fake April organized the kidnapping, Rehem will most likely try to execute her. Then she asks the real issue. Does May have a plan to stop that from happening? May freezes, because she does not have an answer. Seeing that reaction, Elise suddenly jumps up from her seat and changes the topic completely. Now she wants to know something very important. How is May's romance progress with the Tyrant Emperor going? That single question instantly makes May start sweating like she just ran 10 laps around the palace. Meanwhile, Elise, who is far more excited about this topic than anyone else in the room, starts shooting imaginary heartbeams with her tiny hands while announcing her ultimate romance fantasy rule. In rom fan stories, everything eventually gets solved through love. Elise excitedly describes the perfect scenario. May will stand before the Emperor and beg him to spare her younger sister's life just this once. According to her, even the world's most terrifying tyrant would struggle to refuse such a request. Then, while smiling brightly, Elise casually tugs on the whip in her hand like a very enthusiastic coach cheering from the sidelines. Her advice is simple. May should go ahead and seduce the tyrant even more. After all, at this point, there is no turning back for her. Meanwhile, the Emperor is having a very different kind of morning. Right now, he is stuck entertaining a guest he clearly does not enjoy spending time with. Fake April sits near him, proudly offering him a slice of cake she personally made. She even tries to feed it to him herself, which only makes the situation more uncomfortable. Rehem, however, is doing his absolute best to remain polite. The only reason this meeting is happening at all is because April claimed she had something urgent to say about May. Because of that, Rehem agreed to hear her out. But his patience runs out quickly. He tells her bluntly that he does not have time to sit around all day and that she should get straight to the point. Instead of answering directly, April says that if she wants to talk about her sister, she must start with someone else first, the former Empress. That statement immediately makes Rehem frown. He asks what she is talking about. April replies that even he must already know the truth. According to her, both May and the late Empress share a special ability. They both possess a vision that lets them see things other people cannot. Rather than showing interest, Rehem simply plays unconvinced. He dismisses her words as meaningless and stands up, saying that this conversation is nothing but a waste of his time. But just as he is about to leave, April suddenly asks one more question. Isn't he curious about the special scenes that only those people can see? That question makes Rehem pause. Sensing she has finally caught his attention, April smiles with confidence. She claims that she knows the answer to the mystery he wants to understand. However, she is only willing to reveal that information if he grants her one small favor in return. Rehem barely has time to react. Because the very next moment, April suddenly wraps her arms around him from behind and confesses her love. She boldly says she has felt this way for him long before he ever met May. Rehem quickly pulls away from her embrace. With a cold and sarcastic tone, he points out that her claim makes no sense at all, since they had never even met at that time. But April has no intention of backing down. Instead, she reaches up and loops her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. With complete confidence, she tells him that he might not believe it now, but he will understand someday. After all, according to her, the two of them are destined to be together. At that exact moment, May happens to be walking down the corridor. She had been looking for Riem because she needed to start working on her so-called seduction plan. The problem is, May herself has zero confidence in that plan. Still, she tells herself she has no choice. If she wants to move forward, she has to find Riem and at least try. But when she turns the corner and looks through the open doorway, the scene in front of her makes her freeze. Inside the room, fake April and Riem are standing extremely close together. From May's angle, it looks exactly like they're kissing. In reality, April never actually kissed him. She simply positioned herself at the perfect distance and angle so that her target audience watching from outside would misunderstand the situation. And unfortunately for May, she's exactly the audience April was aiming for. Back inside the room, Riem suddenly shoves April away. His voice turns even more icy as he tells her that he has been patient with her for May's sake. Every time she crossed the line before, he chose to let it go. But now, she has pushed that patience too far. April falls to the floor, staring down in disbelief. She asks if he's truly confident he won't regret treating her this way. After all, he still has no idea what information she holds. Riem does not even hesitate. He simply looks down at her with a chilling expression and declares that his generosity ends right there. If she wants someone to thank for the patience he showed earlier, she should thank May. With that, he turns around and walks out of the room. But as he steps out, something in the doorway catches his attention. A black ribbon adorned with a jewel lies there. It's easy to guess what happened. As soon as May saw the scene, she ran away immediately, accidentally dropping the ribbon in her rush. Whether Riem realizes that or not, well, that part remains uncertain for now. Meanwhile, May is already far away, trying desperately to calm herself. She keeps repeating the same thought in her mind. She shouldn't feel hurt, since she and Riem mean nothing to each other. Their engagement is only a contract. And yet, the more she tries to convince herself, the more memories start replaying in her head. All those sweet moments they shared together suddenly come rushing back. Their dates, their teasing moments, and the quiet kindness he showed her. With those memories spinning through her mind, pretending everything is fine becomes almost impossible. She is already on the verge of tears when her little master suddenly appears in front of her, carrying a stack of papers. The moment May sees her, the emotions she had been holding back finally break loose. And just like that, May bursts into tears. After May finishes crying, she and Elise move to a quieter room so they can talk properly. Once they settle down, May explains everything she saw earlier. Elise listens carefully without interrupting. After a short moment of thinking, she rests her chin on her hand and speaks up. She admits she is not sure if this is the perfect time to bring it up, but there is something they really need to address. What exactly are May's feelings toward the Emperor? Does she like him, or is it not quite at that point yet? May hesitates for a moment before answering honestly. The truth is, even she does not know. She explains that sometimes the smallest things make her react strangely. Just making eye contact with Riem can make her face turn red. And when she keeps thinking about him, her heart starts racing like it has a mind of its own. But then, after a few days pass, everything goes back to normal. She feels calm again, like nothing happened. So she truly cannot tell what those feelings mean. Elise listens with a quiet smirk but says nothing at first. Meanwhile, May awkwardly tries to make sense of it herself. Maybe the reason is simply because Riem is the protagonist of this world. He is someone everyone admires. He is powerful, wealthy, handsome, and even kind. In other words, he checks every box of the perfect man. So if someone like that stands beside her, it would not be strange for her heart to flutter at least once. May figures her feelings might just be something simple, like the small crush an extra character develops toward the story's male lead. Although even she admits that explanation is not completely convincing. Right then, the door suddenly opens. The Duke has arrived to visit. The moment she sees him, Elise's face lights up like a little sun. She runs straight toward him and hugs him tightly, happily saying how much she missed him. Cedric gently lifts her up into his arms, smiling at her excitement. Then Elise suddenly points her finger toward May. With the confidence of someone who just thought of a brilliant idea, she announces that if May is confused about her feelings, they should simply test them directly. After all, there happens to be another wonderful man standing right here. Both May and the Duke freeze for a moment, looking completely puzzled by whatever kind of test Elise is talking about. Before anyone can ask what she means, the story suddenly shifts to fake April, who is having a much less cheerful moment. She follows a servant inside a mysterious mansion, looking nervous for once. The method she is about to use is something she truly did not want to rely on. But after May discovered part of her scheme, she knows she cannot afford to relax anymore. Even though May does not seem to have solid evidence yet, fake April decides she cannot take that risk, so she moves forward with her final option. Soon, she enters a dimly lit room where a mysterious noble figure waits. Several servants stand lined up nearby, creating an atmosphere that is anything but welcoming. The moment fake April steps inside, the noble coldly remarks that she has quite a lot of nerve. After all, she is just a possessor heroine daring to request a meeting like this. Despite the unfriendly tone, Seol Eun-chai remains calm. She gives a polite bow and introduces herself by her real name. Then she explains the reason for her visit. According to her, a strange problem has recently appeared in this romance fantasy world. A bug named May Avril. She claims that May is abusing her ability to see titles and is attacking the heroines without mercy. So in order to remove that bug and restore balance to the story, Seol Eun-chai says she has come to seek the wisdom of the world's oldest. The title of the mysterious figure is deliberately hidden for now, leaving the identity a secret. The noble scoffs at her explanation and calls the idea ridiculous. They ask why she would assume they would help her in the first place. In fact, they had no intention of letting fake April leave this room alive. At that signal, the servants immediately raise their swords, ready to strike at any moment. But surprisingly, fake April does not panic. Instead, she calmly declares that they will change their minds soon enough. Because the information she is offering is far more valuable than they realize. Then, with quiet confidence, she reveals the reason. She is the last possessor in this place. On the flip side, Riham is quietly replaying the earlier incident in his mind. More specifically, the moment when April pulled that cheap stunt during their meeting. There's a very good chance May witnessed that entire scene, and if she did, then from her angle, it must have looked extremely suspicious. To anyone watching from outside the room, it would have been very easy to misunderstand. Which means May probably thought he was kissing her sister. That single thought leads Riham to another conclusion. Right about now, his adorable fiancée is most likely crying her eyes out while complaining to her master. And yet, despite realizing all that, Riham still tells himself there is no reason for him to explain anything. After all, their relationship is just a contract. Technically speaking, it is none of his business how May reacts. That is what he tells himself. But the uneasy feeling in his chest refuses to disappear, especially not while he is still holding May's ribbon in his hand. In the end, he sighs and turns to Gale. Riham asks where May is right now. He says he would like to speak with her for a moment. Gale, however, does not answer immediately, not because he does not know. The problem is, he knows exactly where May is, and explaining that location to the Emperor might not go very smoothly. Because earlier that day, something rather unusual happened. Since May was still confused about her feelings for Riham, whether it was simply admiration for a very handsome emperor or something deeper, Elise had come up with a brilliant solution. According to Elise, seeing is believing, so she generously offered to lend her older brother for a small experiment. Her idea was simple. May and Cedric would go on one date together. Then May could compare her feelings afterward. In theory, it sounded helpful. In reality, the situation is extremely awkward. Right now, May is sitting inside a carriage with Duke Cedric, who has somehow been dragged into this sudden date. The poor man looks just as uncomfortable as she does. She nervously bites her nails while wondering if she should just ask the coachman to turn the carriage around, or maybe pretend to feel sick and escape the situation entirely. Before she can decide, the carriage stops. They have already arrived at their date destination. Cedric politely steps out first and offers his hand to help May down from the carriage. Soon the two of them stand in the middle of a lively market. Around them, People are happily dancing, children are laughing while watching a puppet show, and the entire place feels like a cheerful festival. It should be a wonderful outing. Unfortunately, the level of awkwardness between the two of them is somehow even worse than when May is with Riem. At this point, both of them are probably wondering the same thing. What exactly are they supposed to do now? Finally, Cedric breaks the silence and asks May if there is anywhere she would like to go. May quickly says no, secretly hoping that the outing will end early. But Cedric simply nods and calmly says that in that case, they should follow the schedule Elise prepared. Then he pulls out a small list. Yes, Elise had prepared an entire mission plan for this date. The list includes several tasks: eat food at the night market, watch the puppet show, visit a fortune teller's tent if they find one, and most importantly, Cedric must agree to whatever May wants to do. Clearly, Elise put a lot of thought into this little setup. Back in the present, Gale finishes explaining the whole situation to the Emperor. The moment Riem hears that May is currently on a date with another man, a very dangerous aura begins forming around him. And the fact that it is already late at night somehow makes the situation worse. Gale cannot help wondering why the Emperor suddenly looks so displeased. After all, May and Riem are only in a contractual relationship. There should not be a problem. At least, that is what Gale thinks. Then, he nearly jumps when Riem suddenly calls his name. The Emperor asks about the secret guard knight, who has been quietly following May ever since the hunting incident. He wants to know if there are any additional reports. More specifically, he wants details about what exactly May and Cedric have been doing during this outing. Gale quickly checks the report. According to the guard, the first thing the two did was buy cotton candy at the night market. Riem hears that and immediately imagines the scene: May and Cedric happily sharing sweets together. His expression darkens, so he asks what happened next. Gale continues reading. After that, the two watched a puppet show. At one point, the crowd pushed forward, and May almost lost her balance. Fortunately, the Duke caught her by the waist before she could fall. The report also says that she may have slightly twisted her ankle during the commotion. Because of that, the two looked for a place to sit and rest among the crowd. With every new detail, the air around Riem grows colder. Finally, he asks in a frighteningly cold voice what they're doing. Gale hesitates before answering. According to the latest report, May and the Duke eventually entered a tavern together. And with that final piece of information, the last thread of Riem's patience snaps completely that night. The scene now shifts to the tavern where May and Cedric ended up. To quickly explain how these two somehow landed there, it all started with Elise's mission list. First, the two obediently followed the schedule. They bought cotton candy at the night market, and even watched the show together. From a distance, it probably looked like a perfectly normal outing. But then chaos struck in the form of overly energetic children. While the kids were running around, one of them accidentally bumped into May. She lost her balance and instinctively leaned toward Cedric for support. He quickly caught her before she could fall. Unfortunately, instead of thanking him, May panicked and immediately jumped away out of pure embarrassment. And in doing so, she managed to twist her ankle badly, and it hurt like crazy. But May felt far too awkward to ask Cedric for help, so she stubbornly kept quiet and tried to act like everything was fine. While pretending to casually look around, she searches for somewhere nearby where she can sit down for a moment. That's when she notices a mysterious tent, looking exactly like one of those fortune teller tents you see at festivals. To May, it looked like the perfect place to rest for a bit. So she called Cedric over and pointed toward the tent, suggesting they go there for a moment. But when Cedric followed her gaze, the tent was gone. In its place stood a completely ordinary tavern. May quickly tried to explain that there really had been a tent there just a second ago. But to Cedric, it probably sounded like a very strange excuse. And just like that, the two of them somehow ended up inside the tavern instead. Now seated at a table, Cedric decides to start a conversation. He brings up something that happened around the same time last year. It was when his sister visited a temple located in the provinces. That place, as it turned out, was far from holy. The temple had been secretly abusing and trafficking orphans who had nowhere else to go. They also claimed to purify ladies who were supposedly possessed by demons. Under that excuse, They demanded large donations from the ladies' families. But the truth was much darker. Those women were simply being imprisoned there while the temple collected money in the name of holy rituals. In other words, the entire place was a corrupt facility hiding behind religion. Elise had visited that temple to repay a personal debt, and she brought May along with her. At the time, Cedric chose not to interfere. He assumed it was simply his sister's private matter. But now things are different. Since May has become deeply involved with the imperial family through Elise, Cedric feels he cannot ignore the situation anymore. So he asks her directly, what exactly is her real purpose? Hearing that question brings back memories for May. 1 year ago, when she first met Elise, her situation had been miserable. She had been imprisoned in that temple because of her fake sister's schemes. Back then, May didn't even know the temple's name. All she could do during that time was observe things carefully, make endless guesses about what was happening, and keep records in her notes. After reading those notes, Elise eventually revealed the truth. May's younger sister had been taken over by a possessor heroine. Seeing the devastation on May's face, Elise extended her hand toward her and offered to share the secret of the world they were living in. That was the moment May's entire understanding of reality turned upside down. Back to present, May hesitates. Part of her wants to tell Cedric everything. But she knows that information is far too dangerous to casually share. And honestly, it is not exactly the kind of story you tell while completely sober either. So May decides she needs a little courage. Without thinking too much, she grabs the liquor in front of her and drinks it in one go. There is just one small problem. May completely forgot that she has absolutely no tolerance for alcohol. Almost instantly, the room begins spinning. Still, she manages to say one important thing. April is not really her younger sister. Cedric quietly asks if she means someone is pretending to be her sister. May nods and admits that she cannot explain the full details, but she does share the most important part. Her only goal is to get her real sister back. So in the end, he simply says he understands and doesn't press her for more answers. May smiles gratefully, thankful for his consideration. She softly adds that she truly hopes her little sister will return soon, and then she suddenly collapses face first onto the table. The alcohol has officially won. Cedric calls her name a few times, but she does not respond. Looking at her, he cannot help wondering how someone this bad with alcohol could drink so recklessly. As for her real purpose, Cedric assumes it must be a deeply personal family matter, something too painful to talk about without a little help from alcohol. Of course, he is not foolish. He knows May deliberately avoided answering his original question. But even so, he lets it go, because the emotions behind her words felt completely genuine. Maybe it is because May is his sister's close friend, or maybe it is something else entirely. Either way, Cedric notices something unusual. Normally, his condition makes it difficult for him to be around other women, but strangely enough, his symptoms barely react around May. Even after he gently places his coat over her shoulders, he feels perfectly fine. Curious, Cedric is about to check further, perhaps by lightly tapping her back, but he suddenly stops. His hands have started trembling again. Maybe the medicine he took earlier is beginning to wear off. Either way, he decides he should take May back to the carriage as quickly as possible. However, just as he is about to lift her, a familiar voice suddenly speaks from behind. Riem has arrived. With a calm but unmistakably cold tone, the Emperor says he appreciates the gesture, but this part is his responsibility. After all, escorting his tipsy lover home properly is the duty of a fiancé. With that, Riem effortlessly scoops May into his arms. A few minutes later, May slowly wakes up inside a moving carriage. The first thing she notices is that someone is sitting beside her. When she turns her head, she nearly jumps. It's the Emperor. May blinks several times, completely confused. The last thing she remembers is talking to Cedric in the tavern before everything went dark. So why in the world is the Emperor here? To make sure she's not imagining things, May quickly pinches her own cheeks. It hurts. Well, that didn't solve anything. So she arrives at the most logical conclusion her sleepy brain can think of. This must be a dream. Hearing that, Riem lets out a soft laugh. Then he leans slightly closer and asks if she really wants this to be a dream. She freezes. In her mind, she nervously thinks that the Emperor seems unusually warm today, which only convinces her even more that this has to be a dream. And then a realization hits her. If she's longing for Riem even inside her dreams, doesn't that say something about her true feelings for him? When Riem notices her sudden gloomy expression, he asks what's wrong. May quickly shakes her head and says it's nothing. She just says she's coming to terms with reality. But then another idea suddenly pops into her head. If this really is a dream, and dreams allow anything to happen, then maybe she should use this chance. May straightens up and tells Riem that he's been making her feel very unsettled lately. So to solve that problem, she needs to confirm one thing. She smiles and adds that it's nothing difficult. In fact, it's something he's already done once before. Before he can ask what she means, May gently cups his face with both hands, and suddenly kisses him. Riem freezes in complete shock. After a pause, he tries to explain that there must be some misunderstanding. He gently stops her and reminds her that their engagement is only a contract. There is no obligation for this kind of physical contact. And yet, his face is already turning red. May nods and admits that she knows all that. She understands she's only his fake fiancé. But even so, she still wants to kiss him. And just like that, the two of them share a long, deep kiss. A few seconds later, both of them are blushing so hard they could easily pass for tomatoes. May, however, looks surprisingly happy. In fact, she even starts thinking that she wouldn't mind doing it again if she ever had the chance. Then she suddenly meets his gaze with determined eyes. For her, everything feels perfectly fine if she does whatever she wants. After all, to her this is nothing more than a dream. Riem braces himself, preparing for round 3 of kisses. But instead, May simply smiles at him sweetly and confesses how much she likes him. Whether these two will officially date after this, or whether May will remember these kissing scenes, remains a mystery for now. Fast forward a few days later. May and Elise are once again holding one of their strategy meetings. Their current goal is to prove the innocence of the victims who were used for those refreshing scenes. To do that, they need a very important piece of evidence, the handwritten letter from the possessor heroines that fake April had been carrying around. After investigating, they finally discovered where the letter went, or, more accurately, whose hands it ended up in. The problem is that the letter is currently in transit. Apparently, some of the victims never fully trusted fake April. They worried she might use them for her plan, then steal the letter back later to destroy the evidence and blame everything on them. So when their concerns were ignored, they secretly smuggled the letter away. They didn't run off with it permanently. Instead, it seems they planned to watch from a distance and keep the letter as evidence in case April broke her promise. Unfortunately, no one knows where those people are now. Elise explains that there are 2 possibilities. Either Seol Yun-chai quietly eliminated them ahead of time, or they are simply hiding somewhere. For now, Elise plans to expand the investigation with the help of their villainous team. She then turns to May and asks for her opinion. But May hasn't been paying attention at all. She's been staring into space the entire time. When May finally notices Elise's sharp glare, she quickly apologizes and explains that she hasn't been sleeping well lately. Later, as May walks back to her room, she looks completely exhausted. For the past few days, she hasn't been able to sleep properly at night. And during the day, the same thought keeps looping in her head. The cause of all this stress? It's about their kiss. Here's what happened after May returned to the palace with Riem. When May woke up the next morning, she couldn't remember anything after drinking with Cedric. Or to be more precise, she only remembers fragments. There's a vague memory in her mind of kissing Riem. She has no idea if that moment was real, or just a dream her drunk mind created. Unfortunately, the only person who could confirm the truth is Riem himself. And of course, he's been away from the palace for several days attending the launch ceremony of a newly built warship. So now May is stuck in this miserable situation. Day after day, she keeps thinking about that moment, unsure whether it really happened. And because of that, she has absolutely no idea how she's supposed to face Riem the next time they meet. But fate clearly had other plans, because the moment she opens the door to her room, she finds the Emperor already inside, calmly waiting for her with a small smile on his face. He greets her as if this is the most normal thing in the world, and casually asks if she missed him. May, meanwhile, completely short-circuits on the spot. A few minutes later, the two of them end up sitting across from each other. But May's brain is running in circles. She had spent days preparing herself to ask Riham about what happened that night. And now that he's right in front of her, she can't even look him in the eye, let alone ask anything. Riham seems to notice her awkward behavior right away. Instead of helping her out, though, he decides to tease her. He casually asks if her date with the Duke a few days ago was fun. May blinks in confusion. Riham raises an eyebrow and asks what else he should call it then. A secret tryst, perhaps? That immediately shuts May up. Riham then calmly reminds her of something important. Officially, she is his fiancée. So from now on, he would like her to behave with that in mind. May nods right away and apologizes. She admits she didn't think things through, and promises to be more careful in the future. But then Riham surprises her again. He explains that he didn't come here to scold her or warn her about anything. Instead, he places a familiar black ribbon on the table between them. Then he says he came because there's something he wants to clarify. He explains that a few days ago, April came to see him. She claimed she had something important to say about May. When he showed no interest, she suddenly changed her approach and tried to kiss him. Riham also makes it clear that he handled the situation properly beforehand, so nothing inappropriate actually happened. Hearing that, May lets out a small smile and reaches for her tea. But before she can even take a sip, Riham casually adds one more sentence. Things like that only happen with you. At that, her hand trembles so badly that she almost spills the tea. With a shaky voice, she asks what he means by that. Riham tilts his head slightly and comments that it seems May truly doesn't remember what happened the night she got drunk. That statement sends alarm bells ringing in May's head. She immediately blurts out that she remembers everything. Truth is, she has just realized that the moment she thought was only a dream actually happened, every single bit of it. Unfortunately, Riham doesn't look convinced at all, so he asks her to come closer. May obediently moves toward him, although she can't help worrying that he might actually be angry. Once she's close enough, Riham asks her to explain exactly how much she remembers. She nervously says that she remembers waking up in the carriage with him and asking if it was a dream. But when she reaches the part where she kissed him first, she suddenly can't continue. Riham notices immediately and smirks, asking if she's backing out now. Before May can escape, he gently pulls her closer. How unfair, he murmurs. I remember everything perfectly. The next thing May knows, she's sitting on his lap. Riham leans closer as he continues explaining what happened that night, casually mentioning that she was the one who kissed him first in the carriage. Then he adds that if she still can't remember everything, he wouldn't mind helping her create a new memory. The distance between their faces grows smaller and smaller. At this point, both of them are clearly about to kiss. And that's exactly when the door suddenly bursts open. Elise rushes in with a huge grin, announcing that she has breaking news. She excitedly says they finally found the letter they've been searching for. At this rate, she's convinced that fate is truly on their side, and fake April is completely finished. But when Elise finally looks up, she sees May sitting on Riham's lap, and the Emperor is literally 1 inch away from kissing her. That's probably the worst timing ever. Try not to die from embarrassment, okay? A little while later, Elise is lying face down on the couch, her face buried in embarrassment. She groans that she has no idea how she's supposed to face May anymore. Even if she had 2 mouths, she still wouldn't be able to come up with an excuse. May just laughs it off and says it's fine, though she admits she was pretty flustered in that moment too. Trying to move past the awkwardness, May asks about the important news instead. Where did Elise find the letter? Elise looks up and explains that it's a bit of a long story. Apparently, Countess Beauvalet has been secretly running something like a domestic violence counseling center in her territory. Word eventually spread, and the victims who smuggled the letter out heard about it. So they reached out to her for help. The Countess immediately sensed something suspicious and brought them to her residence in the capital, where she kept them under protection. Which means the letter had actually been in their hands this entire time. Elise excitedly adds that the handwriting analysis is already finished, and they've assembled a special team to investigate all the possessor heroines involved. Now only one thing remains: bringing them to justice. But while the girls are celebrating their progress, the story shifts to another location. Inside April's office, the atmosphere is completely different. Several possessor heroines are gathered there, and they are furious. One after another, they accuse April of dragging them into trouble. Because of her fight with May, they almost ended up taking the blame for everything. Now they demand to know how exactly she plans to take responsibility. But fake April doesn't look worried at all. She simply smiles and tells them to calm down. According to her, the situation isn't nearly as serious as they think, because she already has a solution. She explains it with a simple analogy. A single arrow can easily be snapped in half, but a bundle of arrows cannot be broken. Among all the romance fantasy heroines in this world, the possessor heroines are actually the most numerous. If they truly unite together, then not even May, or the Emperor himself, would be able to stop them. Unfortunately, the other heroines are not convinced. They quickly point out the obvious flaw in her plan. If things go wrong, the only person who will survive is probably April herself. They accuse her of planning to use them as shields before escaping again, just like she did with Emma. April simply shrugs at the accusation and says they're mistaken. If the choice had truly been hers, things might have turned out very differently. With a confident smile, April also reminds them that, as she mentioned before, this entire world was originally created for only one protagonist. And a few days ago, she went to meet that very first protagonist. After hearing about the current situation, that person gave her a piece of advice. Right now, the possessed heroines should form an alliance. And together, they must eliminate the bug of that world. May Avril.